Hey everybody, you are listening to the History Boys. Once again, I am Christopher Whedon. Zach is no longer with us, and because of that, we were deep within the bowels of Tyler's lair, hanging amongst all his toys and Captain America posters.
Man,
that's not even a joke. That's just you're just pointing.
I'm not saying a joke.
If anything,
I'm saying in a joke voice.
It makes me realize that the wall that I look at that's behind you guys is shockingly barren.
It's very blank.
And I need to get some
that's
more.
A good point. Because I'm behind you, you got like, what if Frazier joined the Fantastic Four? Yeah. You got Captain America, that isn't a joke poster, it's a real just poster.
Yeah, just looking cool.
You got all sorts of tchotchkes from different Vigi games. Star Wars regalia.
Yeah.
Various media empires.
Yeah, it's
all owned by either Disney or Nintendo.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
That looks right. I think Universal, those are the only things that own anything anymore.
It's true.
You don't have anything from Warner Brothers.
I know. Well, that's because I think Warner Brothers, let's just say it's stuff that poor people like. And I'm a man of classy tastes.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that only the impoverished enjoy Batman because they fantasize about having money so they can go fight crime.
They're like, I wish I was rich so I could beat up poor people.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
mentally ill.
Yeah. They're like, I'm so sick of getting my ass kicked by vigilantes. If I was rich, I'd be the vigilante.
Kicking ass.
Yeah.
Kicking ass.
And
kicking ass at beating the shit out of people who really need severe mental help.
Well, honestly, this does tie in with the episode today.
It was not an accident.
No.
Oh, real quick, Tyler, I'm Trent History Boy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I am also Jerry Nash, History Boy. Thank you so much for listening, as always. We're on to, what is this, part 3 of Spooky Season 4? Spooky Season?
Part
15?
3. 4. Because we did History of Halloween. Mm-hmm. We did...
But we're missing the first one.
What was the first one? Oh, Poe. We did History of Halloween. We did Lizzie Borden. This is part 4. What are we doing, Jerry?
I like when Poe flew that X-Wing.
In the Discord, you mentioned that John Cusack, I think it was either Kat or Jenny or somebody brought up...
it was Jenny, yeah.
Yeah, she brought up that John Cusack played him in a movie, and you said they needed to CGI his head to be bigger like Helena Bottom Carter's in...
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland, and I laughed so hard I cried. Just imagine Tim Burton like, bigger. It's Edgar Allan Poe. We have to do him justice.
Looks like a hot air balloon.
And hilarious shenanigans like that is what you're missing out on if you're not on our Patreon and not hopping on that Discord. And
for pennies a day.
For pennies a day, you could be hearing all of Chris's japes and my japes, and Jerry's putting up facts and pics and all kinds of cool stuff. And he does japes too. They're just. I mean, I don't want to give them all the stuff.
They're fewer further between and more subtle, but they're there, and they're more biting.
And don't forget also Zach's tour diary while he's gone, or as I like to call it, his tour diary.
We didn't forget about Zach. I think about him every day.
You have a picture next to your bed, and you touch it as you go to sleep.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Like that Wolverine meme where he's like looking at the picture. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I'd like to think he has votive candles around it, and one day he came home and the votives went out on their own, and he called Zach right away to make sure he was okay.
And he was not. So it was a good thing I called.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was in an
stubbed
alleyway.
His toe.
Yeah. He stubbed his toe. He stubbed his toe in an alleyway. Broad daylight. It was actually very safe. So what are we doing today?
Well, what we're doing today is Blackwell's Lunatic Asylum.
Yeah.
Sounds above the board.
Yeah.
You got Penguin in there.
Yeah. Right.
It might actually have some, inspiration. What Arkham Asylum
and Arkham Sitch
with this. Now, in New York City, between Manhattan and Queens, and the East River, there's a 2-mile-long, 800-foot maximum width island.
Oh, yeah.
That today is called Roosevelt Island.
That's where they got the raft.
But in the 19th century, it held the booming city's sick, criminal, poor, and mentally ill populations.
Oh, man.
Isn't Arkham supposed to be on an island? It's got to be based on this.
It's got to be, right?
Sometimes it is.
It must have been so nice back in the day where you didn't have to worry about homeless or criminally insane people because they kept them all locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
And you had Batman to grab them off the streets and toss them in there.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think everybody was Batman back then.
Yeah.
Just fucking...
What, are you a native-born white man?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can absolutely toss anyone you want into prison.
Yep.
It's no problem at all.
Yeah.
We'll come get them.
I'm a native-born white woman. Why are you speaking? No one's speaking to you. Throw her in jail. She's crazy and hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
That's hysterics.
Right here it says hysterical.
So wait,
If I'm on
it's
my
not
phone,
like
that's what I'm doing.
black wells as in like a well of water, the water's turned black. It's like there's white wells and then his buddy Blackwell's, and he's like, why? He's like, why do I have to be black wells? And they're like, well, because you're black. He's like, why can't I be regular wells? And he's white wells, and they're like,
Let me tell you about it.
systemic racism. Sorry,
it's
wells.
Not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now, back then, back in the 19th century, it was a place of unimaginable suffering and despair. Just before we begin, I want to acknowledge our main source for this, which is Damnation Island by Stacey Horn. Fantastic book, and honestly, we are only doing but a piece of that book because she does the whole island on this book. We're only going to do the Lunatic Asylum.
So wait, there's more human suffering on that island
Than just what we're going to talk about today,
Lousy
yes.
with it.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's a really good book. It's written extremely well. I highly recommend it. Now, the island was called Minnehahannock to the Canarsie Indians, and like any place in the United States, they were basically forced off of it. They said they bought it. They basically bought it for pennies.
Yeah.
And forced them off of it. Right?
We bought it in exchange for bullets, and we got an island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, it was actually, back when it was New Amsterdam, they called it Varken Island, or Hog Island is what that means. Hog Island.
New Amsterdam is... Wait, no.
I think that's the old name for
That's...
New York.
Well, no, I know. I'm trying to
It's like,
remember
is that-
whether that's pre-Jamestown or post-Jamestown.
Post.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a Dutch settlement for a long time, hence New Amsterdam. And yeah, it's called Hog Island because that's where they raised pigs.
Well, and also because it was, it was New Amsterdam. They were rolling up those hog legs, those big old joints, smoking hash all day long. They didn't get anything done, and that says a lot about their work ethic. You know?
Referring to joints as hogs.
Yeah.
Referring honestly to anything as hog that is not a pig is hilarious to me.
Like a motorcycle.
Yeah, or a penis.
Yeah.
Or an old woman.
A short, girthy penis is usually
It
referred
is
to as a hog.
A hog.
Yeah. So sorry if you didn't know that, because it's gonna ruin your trip to the. I don't know.
To the Hog Museum.
The hog museum. I was gonna say the pumpkin patch, because usually they got animals there.
They got pigs hanging out there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes there's a petting zoo. They got
Okay.
those big old pigs that are
You
like...
get a goat maybe munching
goat.
around. But when the English took control and it became New York, the island became Manning Island after the guy that owned the island.
Peyton
Manning.
Peyton Manning, yeah. Classic, I don't know, basketball, baseball,
sports.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, football.
Okay,
I know it's
yeah,
soccer, I was
football.
just joking.
Yeah. Anyway, a guy named Robert Blackwell inherited the island from him. Basically, it went to his daughter, the Manning guy, to his daughter, and then Robert Blackwell got it because he was married to her, right?
And he changed the name again.
He changed the name to Blackwell's Island. Name it after
My
me
island.
now. Yeah.
My island now.
And he actually built a mansion there that's still standing. It's one of the few structures that are still standing in New York that have 17th century architecture.
Ooh.
Haunted as fuck. No two ways about it.
Yeah. There is also a lighthouse on the island.
Also haunted.
Yeah. All
It's-
lighthouses are.
That's called the Blackwell Island Light, which I
That
really
sounds...
like that.
If it wasn't haunted, the second you name it that,
Yeah.
the ghost just moves right.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, there's all these like hospitals and horrible things happening here, and there's like a lighthouse on the end. It just gives it that quintessential sort of this place is a dark place.
Was Shutter
sort of
Island
feel.
like intensely inspired by this?
I imagine the whole trope of scary asylum comes from Victorian era asylums.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
just this one.
They
but
were all
from
bad.
all of them, honestly. What I'm going to tell you today is not necessarily special. Okay, it didn't necessarily just begin and end here. It was across pretty much this whole era's.
So all those, the
way they
and
dealt
all
with
the
it.
things are
Yeah.
just kind of an American, a Victorian asylum kind of thing.
That lighthouse is on the northern tip. It was actually designed by James Renwick Jr., who also designed St. Patrick's Cathedral. That is like that really pretty church in New York. And he also designed the Smallpox Hospital that is also on the island. And the Smallpox Hospital is exactly what it sounds like. They would take people off the streets who had smallpox and put them in one place, the Smallpox Hospital. And that's pretty much what they would do. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much as far as it goes.
Just get him out of my face.
I thought you were going to say that he designed smallpox.
No, the Smallpox Hospital.
In a laboratory beneath the hospital, he invented smallpox.
Toiled.
He toiled away.
Yeah. Trying to make a better version of smallpox.
American Horror Story style.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's some stuff that really fits with American Horror Story in this episode. Actually, in front of the lighthouse, written in cement, it actually says, and I'll tell you why it says this. It says, "This is the work that was done by John McCarthy, who built the lighthouse from the bottom to the top. All ye who pass by may pray for his soul when he dies."
Why, 'cause he's a sinner?
Yeah. Okay, so John McCarthy was an inmate on the island, on Blackwell's Island, and he
Hated
actually...
communists.
Yeah, well, he hated the British.
I was joking.
Even though this is like in the middle of the 1800s and the British were not going to attack us at all,
He's like, "Ugh."
he built a seawall and he built like a fort to protect from the British. And they paid him fake money to tear it down and build the lighthouse. And I guess he helped build the lighthouse. But it's sort of a legend, right?
They're
It's sort of
like,
a legend.
do you want this this monies? And he's like, why do you keep on saying it like that? They're like, no reason, just take it. And he's like, all right, I'll take the money. And they're like,
Would you like some Blackwell's Island fun bucks?
Yeah.
and he's like, how come there's 3 E's in money? It's got a picture of Blackwell on it. Smoking a cigar. Because I just assume that he does.
Yeah. Everyone did, right? Now, New York, the city, actually bought the island in 1828 for $32,500,
What a steal.
where it planned to build hospitals, poorhouses, prisons, and a brand new, state-of-the-art insane asylum.
Cool.
And of course, these are terms they used back in the
Yeah,
day.
state of the art. It was a whole new level of technology that could be used to torture the mentally ill.
And it was. It was.
You're like,
It was.
You're like, that's not a joke. That's,
Yeah.
don't
like-
ruin it.
Define mentally ill. They're like, not white males.
Went a little deeper than that.
Hysterical women. You
Yeah,
know.
there's a white male right there, and he's going to this island. Oh, he's poor.
Yeah. See, there you go.
That's his
There you
mental
go.
illness.
When did
See?
lobotomies start? Is that happening?
Oh, that's
here?
20th century.
Yeah, this is after this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is 19th century.
Yeah, lobotomies are shockingly recent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do back then, so they just beat the shit out of people and threw them in a padded room.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking. You're not even exaggerating. It's so much worse than that. It is so much worse than that.
Be nice if that was just it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Now, the asylum was built with a new approach to dealing with the mentally ill called the moral treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Because believe it or not, fellas, what we're about to talk about, it used to be worse. It used to be worse than this.
Yeah.
In fact, what they were doing, what moral treatment was all about was we shouldn't be taking these mentally ill people and throwing them in prison. They shouldn't be going in prison. We can all agree that they shouldn't go into prison.
Yeah, I mean,
And they should go into buildings that don't look like prisons. No bars, no big doors with little openings. They shouldn't be sitting around in straitjackets.
Yeah.
Things that make it a prison, our buildings should not be.
Were they
Right.
putting people in prison in straitjackets?
Oh, yeah.
That was the thing?
Oh, yeah, that was the thing.
straitjackets are for escape artists and magicians. They're no longer for the mentally ill.
They
We let their
pretty-
arms flail wildly, just like God intended.
Yeah. Now, the main asylum was designed by a guy named Alexander Jackson Davis. He had this moral treatment in mind. You know, the windows would look a certain way. They wouldn't be, it wouldn't look like a prison. But as they were building it, they just sort of threw it out the window and put bars on the windows
like-
and put all this stuff on, to make
Like,
it
we
more
really
like a prison.
like your idea, but can we make it look scarier?
Yeah, yeah.
I want people to have nightmares just seeing the place.
Yeah. People used to think that insanity, which is sort of a catch-all term, was a moral failing or the result of a demonic possession or simply a lack of faith.
Yeah.
But the new sort of thing that was just sort of coming out, that thought was sort of starting to change. The moral treatment looked at the mentally ill as people that had a disease. It was a disease that could be cured, and they could release them back into society as productive members.
It's almost halfway true.
Yes, exactly. Halfway true, I would say. Now, even though the poor almost exclusively were sent to places like Blackwell's, the rich were went to privately funded institutions, such as the Bloomingdale Asylum in New York City.
Which I imagine...
Get a lot of shopping done there.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that, I'd imagine that is... The rich people asylum is what you would expect this should be.
Yes, yes, exactly, because it's privately funded. When people go there, their rich families are paying for them a certain amount a week to be taken care of there.
Yeah.
And they are, of course, providing that money. So it does have a really big source of funding.
It's really nice, you know. It looks like a gentrified neighborhood.
It's nowhere near as what we would consider nice, even the rich people's place. But Blackwell's was, way worse than any of these privately funded places at the time.
I just want to see the rich people insane community that Chris is discussing. That looks like a gentrified neighborhood. Like they live in really nice block housing, and for some reason all of the complexes have a restaurant with like a dumb name like Sizzle on the bottom, and it's like and like outside of them it says like work, live, enjoy, or something like that.
Yeah. No, there's a little craft cocktail bar on the corner.
That's what I'm picturing.
Called Blend.
Yeah, it's called Blend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No vowels, all consonants.
Yeah.
BL,
Lowercase
ND. Yeah.
BLND.
Like it could be a fucking app or something.
Yeah.
And they have an app.
Yeah, they have an app you can order online.
Yeah. Now, of course, this plan of moral treatment failed almost immediately. Yeah. Because they underestimated how many people that would be sentenced to go there.
Oh, yeah.
And they underestimated how much it would cost to care for each and every one of them every day.
Turns out everyone's crazy.
Did they also underestimate the level of inspired cruelty that could be administered by an underpaid, undereducated staff?
Yeah, yeah, they didn't account for that at all, it turns out.
It also didn't help that they considered being poor a mental illness.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, the 19th century was a boom time for New York, and a lot of immigrants were coming in. Everything was instantly overcrowded and underfunded and understaffed. One administrator would look after the whole place, the whole island. There was one administrator, and it was a political appointment. It had nothing to do with your experience. It had nothing to do with what you knew. It was the spoils system,
It's
right?
who you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's who you know. So that's the way it was sort of run. People would quit. It was sort of a revolving door, all of these jobs. And honestly, if you worked anywhere near the hospitals or anything like that, you took your life in your own hands. Because you could die of typhoid. You could die of cholera. You could die of all these diseases that ravaged these places constantly. Tuberculosis, that was the number one killer.
The consumption.
Yeah, in the place, yes.
It was the COVID of its time.
Yeah. And like Tyler said, the nurses that looked after the place, because they're so underfunded and they don't really have the materials they need to properly care for people, it turns you into sort of a mean animal of a person, right? Like, it's taking the Stanford prison experiment and, like, turning it up to 11. Because at some point you're tired of hearing from people like, how come I don't get good food? Like, why are there no more blankets? How come I'm cold all the time? You know, and it's like, we don't have the money. We don't have all this
When you
stuff.
don't have the manpower to help the people you're trying to help, you become resentful of them.
Exactly. You become resentful and you become a bad person.
I've worked retail.
Yeah, it's kind of like when there's like one simple thing you could do to keep yourself out of the hospital, and instead you don't do that for political reasons, and then instead you take untested, ineffective medications and then end up in the emergency room and need the maximum amount of a nurse and doctor's attention and time, and it keeps on happening again and again and again and again, and eventually they just end up quitting and going into new professions, and everyone's like, why aren't there more nurses and doctors?
Yeah. And
Grant.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all true. But probably, honestly, the nurses also lived there. They lived there as well. They couldn't go home and then come back.
That's what I had always thought that teachers did. When I was in school, I thought the teachers lived at school.
That. Yeah.
They did. They couldn't afford rent.
And then
they do live there.
Then you see them at the mall, and they're working at TJ Maxx, and you're like, oh, how's it going, Mrs. Whatever? And she's like, oh, this is embarrassing. I can't wait to get home at the school and tell all my friends about it. My friends being the other teachers.
Yeah.
Wait, was she shopping at TJ Maxx?
Oh, no, she worked. That was her second job because being a teacher doesn't pay enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say TJ Maxx is like the it's sort of like a slight cut above like Goodwill or something.
Yeah.
It's like Ross.
It's like that discounted, super discounted, overflow stock stuff.
It's the pachinko machine of fast fashion. It's probably one of the pegs right before the bottom.
Yeah, it really is. It's like, this was popular 5 years ago. This is overstock. We got to get rid of it.
Yeah, but it's great for things like underwear and socks, like things that no one's even going to see. I mean, who cares? You just get, You get red underwear so no one can see the blood. It blends in when you bleed out of your holes. You guys know what I'm talking about. And as a man, dude,
I get a lot of rectal bleeding.
It's due to my diet. Yeah, the way I'm living my life.
I'm just eating ghost peppers. You just buy the bunch.
Ghost peppers and ground beef. Yeah. Every meal.
And heavy cream. Yeah. Covered in heavy cream.
It's for my heartburn.
Oh my god.
Okay. Now, probably the biggest mistake they probably made when figuring out how to run this place was letting inmates from the nearby prison on the island be orderlies in the insane asylum.
Whoa, wait.
Yeah, I'm not kidding about that. That's a real thing.
They let violent criminals?
They let thieves and drunks and prostitutes be like the attendants. So like they pull them out of their cells and they'd be like, all right, so you're going to help me run things, keep things in order. So, again, you have people sentenced to be there, looking after these severely mentally ill people.
There's nobody better at keeping the order than an arsonist.
Yeah. So...
I kind of trust sex workers to do the job, frankly. They're already taking care of people.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't mean that as a joke, quite literally.
It came with all the problems that you can think of. Abuse was just rampant. Physical abuse.
You got fucking
in every way.
Taking care of,
Well, not to mention...
in every way possible, there's just abuse.
Yeah, even if you're just a thief or a drunk, you're
sentenced to be there.
Yeah, you're sentenced to be there. You don't want to be there. So you either get driven up the wall by somebody who is not in their right mind, and so you haul off and you smack them in the face.
They did worse.
Yeah.
They did worse. Rape was common, very common.
I had a feeling that was going to go there.
Yeah.
And also, if you have orderlies that are sex workers in a place where they're already going to rape the patients there, they're probably going to go after the sex workers, because these guys are they're not into the whole women are people thing.
No, especially when you're locked up.
Yeah.
When you go to one of these places, it is truly like you don't matter anymore. Yep. You know what I mean? You are away from everything, and so anything is sort of permitted.
You've been thrown into the junk drawer of society with a bunch of batteries and rubber bands and then closed.
Yeah. Yeah. And tacks and things that stab you. Using the excuse of they don't have the language to complain, they used to think that the mentally ill couldn't feel or perceive of changes in temperature. So when it was too cold, they didn't do anything about it because they didn't directly say it's too cold. So they straight up had like purple and blue feet from the cold because the clothing they were given wouldn't protect from either extreme, a New York summer or a New York winter. But that's all you had. And you had a small blanket that I guess wasn't big enough to cover a normal-sized person. If you had it over your shoulders, your feet were exposed. If you had it over your feet, your shoulders were out. That kind of a thing. That alone is enough to drive you crazy. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That was something that they're dealing with in this time as well. Prisoners controlling everything. One administrator actually boasted that it only takes 18 cents per prisoner to feed a day. 18 cents.
So maybe they could have spent a little bit more.
Should have, yes. Yeah. But again, there's, a lot to spend money on for the city, because the city is handling this whole thing. The city of New York is handling the whole thing. And it was just underfunded. No one cared enough to do anything about it. They were just out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing. And just, no one thought that all of these judges that just sort of railroaded people to this island would just sentence so many people, because it was easy to be deemed insane by these judges and so-called experts.
You're crazy. Yeah, I'm doing a judge with like a gavel.
Yeah. And he twirls it above his head.
You're like charging it up.
Crazy. Yeah.
This is a hard day at work.
Yeah.
Winding it up. Boom.
1 year after opening the asylum, the population was near capacity at 278. They built these pavilions on the outside, which are shacks, basically, wooden shacks, to deal with the overflow. By 1870, there was nearly double that. Double that. Even though the pavilions had capacity for 70 each, the whole place had the capacity of like 640. But it had, nearly double that, over 1,000 inmates there. And we'll get into why that is truly horrific here in a moment. What that actually means.
Oof.
In 1850, they counted 534 immigrant patients and 121 native-born patients. So that really shows you a disparity right
It's a weird
there.
coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, people made like the same dog shit arguments that they make today, about how they're taking jobs, these immigrants, and how their families are too big and we can't control them and they're coming from these shithole places, and all of that. They made all the same dog shit things. They're criminals. They practice this religion that we don't like. All that stuff. Only it was mainly about Irish and Germans at this time.
They're taking our jobs, and then it's like, oh yeah, I know that you had a sprawling gig picking fruit trees.
Yeah. Or a
for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, a sweet gig in one of those dangerous factories.
Yeah.
Getting
your hand crushed in the gears while trying to make toothbrushes or some dumb shit like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get any insurance, and you get paid pennies. Pennies on the dollar of what a native-born person would get paid to do the exact same job. Yeah, they're taking your jobs.
Well, and they're not even taking those jobs. A native-born person is not working in the factories and things like that. Not generally speaking.
And let's not forget, that is not the immigrant's fault. That is the capitalist who employs them's fault.
Yeah.
He could hire native-born people and pay them a living wage, but it's cheaper if you want that toothbrush for 75 cents or whatever. You got to have it made by immigrants. So
or shipped overseas. In this case, now, how come things are so expensive? Why is it not American made? It's like, well, are you going to work in the factory? I didn't think so. So shut the fuck up.
You pay $5,000 for an iPhone?
Right. That's how much it is, brother.
Yeah.
Now, Charles Dickens even visited the asylum in 1842. Same year, by the way, same trip. He actually met Edgar Allan Poe. Actually liked each other. They liked each other's work and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I like Poe's work.
Yeah.
Dickens fucking sucks.
He's
come on. There's a lot of social commentary in his.
I was joking.
Yeah.
Dickens is like, hey, Poe, I like your work. And Poe's like, you don't know me.
Charles Dickens was a celebrity. You know what I mean? That would be like Steven
Oh,
Spielberg coming to town.
Well, didn't you say people liked Poe when he was sober?
Yes.
Like, he seems like a likable guy.
Yeah.
That big old head, you know, he's like sloshing around.
He's like, I am sober. He's like, no, it's Pober. That's what we call Poe when he's not completely blackout drunk.
Yeah. Halfway into his first drink.
Yeah.
1842, that was 3 years after the Lunatic Asylum opened. But he wrote these words 3 years after it opened. 3 years. Mm-hmm. And when I say that we're covering this, this goes all the way from when it opened to when it closed. Okay, so this is all of the 19th century, from the late 1830s to 1901, literally to 1901. So keep in mind that not much changes throughout this whole time.
Yeah.
Right? Small changes that didn't really have an effect were put into place. But here's what Charles Dickens had to say. Quote, "Everything had a lounging, listless madhouse air, which was very painful. The moping idiot, cowering down with long disheveled hair, the gibbering maniac with his hideous laugh and pointed finger, the vacant eye, the fierce wild face, the gloomy picking of the hands and lips, the munching of the nails, they were all there, without disguise, in naked ugliness and horror."
I do all those things.
Yeah, that sounds like just another day of the week for me.
I actually don't chew on my nails, but I know a lot of
sort
people
of
do.
I sort of do, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
I don't.
but
My nails are too strong. I'd break my teeth.
Yeah, well,
I got soft teeth.
I got
Millhouse.
Yeah, I have I have brittle nails. They crumple
Same.
easily under the my reasonably firm teeth. I wouldn't say that they're instruments of mayhem or anything, but I can work my way through some ground beef and ghost peppers.
And by the way, at this time, they considered the term idiot to be anyone with an intellectual disorder. So anyone born with an intellectual disorder, mentally handicapped is what we would probably call them now, were put in there as well. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're dealing with as well, on top of this.
So they're like ADD, dyslexia.
Oh, I think like
Simple anxiety was enough to send you there.
You're an idiot.
Well, no,
that
idiot
was more
is
like
mentally handicapped.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what they would call them at the time. But to be sent to Blackwell's Lunatic Asylum, all you really needed was anxiety, and that was enough.
So really, everybody in this room qualifies to go to Blackwell's.
Yeah, we could all go to Blackwell's for sure.
Luckily,
for
back
sure.
in the day, dyslexia, you could just pretend you don't know how to read, and they're like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine as long as you work at a job.
There's plenty of honest work out there for you.
You can get that factory.
Yeah, you can get that factory. They barely lose any hands to those grinding gears anymore.
Yeah, they
like
lose a
just,
couple fingers. You sneak away
What
with
do you
that.
do? You can't read the warning labels.
There's no warning labels. With open machinery.
How
There's
would
like
you know
open
if you can't
boats.
read?
Yeah.
All right.
Like-
Why don't you got the wiggly symbols on this one?
Yeah. You know, like those things that cover, like, spinning chains and stuff like that?
Machine guarding.
Yeah, that was later. Like, none of that is here at this point in time.
OSHA was a twinkle in, I don't know, Ralph Nader's eye or something. Whoever was the person who came up, it was like, hey, there should be really somebody making sure that
Story for a different day, honestly. Story for a different day. Now, there were structures. Here's the structures that were on this island. There was a prison.
Cool.
There was a workhouse. Now, the workhouse was for minor offenses.
Okay.
And minor offenses of that day were to be drunk in public.
Been there.
If they found you drunk in public, send you to the workhouse for at least 10 days. 10 days you'd go to the workhouse. If you were a vagrant, you were homeless, go to the workhouse. Mm-hmm. Right? If you were any of these things, these sort of small-time things, you'd go to the workhouse. And the workhouse labor built all of these other structures on the island. They use basically forced labor to do this.
God, that's what we were doing now. Seattle would need a lot of workhouses.
Yep.
Then we might actually be able to fix our infrastructure.
Yeah,
Dear
that's true.
Lord. We should not go back to that if that's what you're
I'm not
insinuating.
serious. No.
There was the Smallpox Hospital that I talked about earlier. And then there was the Alms House. And that was the place, the Alms.
Alms.
The Alms
Like,
House.
Give me some alms.
Yeah.
Yes, it was for the poor.
It wasn't like
Or,
what is it, like
that's,
electrical
that's what it is.
resistance?
No.
That's
is
ohms, yeah.
yeah.
Alms. Oh wait, alms
Alms.
is kicking
Charity.
Charity,
Yeah,
yeah.
We talked about this recently.
Yeah, we did.
Alms House. It was for the poor.
Poor love alms.
It's not exactly like a Mother Teresa, like Home for the Dying, although many of these people it is their last stop because many of them can't work. They are infirmed in some way. They can't walk. A lot of them were veterans of the war. They threw out on the streets after they blew off a leg.
Weird.
And now you're on the streets of New York, and there's literally nothing you can do to better your situation. So the last stop, your last thing you can do is go to the almshouse, and you might get care there.
Yeah.
And people were starving there. It was a horrific place to be, but that is, again... Go read the book if you want to know more about that. We're not going to talk about the almshouse here. It is equally horrific in a lot of ways, and worse in some ways.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was pre-VA, so pre-A, and
Right.
So you get done fighting, well, either for your country or against it.
Yeah.
And
in this particular case, yes.
yeah, either way, you wind up either missing an arm, missing a leg, and you're a junkie because everyone's just like, give him more morphine for the pain.
Oh, that happened also in the Lunatic Asylum, where they were like, you know what makes them calm down? Morphine and laudanum. Let's just give them that, and they'll sit there and not make any noise at least.
They'll just shut the fuck up.
I feel like if I had really bad anxiety and they put me into the mental hospital for my anxiety and then gave me laudanum, if they were giving me smokes too, I'd be like, this isn't so bad.
Wait until we get into it, Tyler. There's a lot more that will go into it. That's
the violent torture and beatings won't hurt as bad if they give me morphine.
They stop complaining about
That's
the
not what
beatings
I'm
if you give
talking
them
about.
enough morphine.
Not to mention, at that point in time, I could just like go to Sears and go buy like a heroin kit. Like if you want to be a junkie back then, they made it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just go be a junkie.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't have to go.
they had opium houses, you know. Now, the main part, so basically there's like a main building called the Octagon, and then there was 2 wings coming off the side. I'm serious.
Is it where they made the patients fight?
No. The Octagon is actually where the physicians and nurses and whatnot, where they stayed. Mm-hmm. Right? And actually they made the patients, like, clean their rooms and stuff for them.
At least one of the doctors had to have been like, we'll just settle this in the Octagon. Not even knowing.
Yeah.
Not even knowing what he was saying.
Yeah. But yeah, one wing used to be for the men, and then one for the women, right? But there was always more women than men.
Yeah.
In here than, yeah.
Because
And-
women be hysterical.
Yeah. And we'll get into it, but they moved them in at later in the 1800s. They moved them into Ward's Island, and it became a place just for women, even though they were still overcrowded. They moved them in for overcrowding purposes, but it was still overcrowded even after that. Now, the food of this place was downright inedible. There were spiders in the bread.
Spiders are edible.
A lot of the bread looked more like dried dough than anything. And there was rancid butter that they'd put on it.
Okay.
How does butter get rancid?
It's rancid.
You can leave it out.
It gets rancid.
I just leave it out. I got a little thing that's covered, but it's out room temperature.
Yeah.
You have to
Shred's better that way.
Yeah, how you have to try to make butter rancid.
There's probably
yeah.
a lot of like preservatives in modern butter.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, this is like, old-timey butter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean,
It's basically milk.
well, in these days, I mean, everybody loves spider bread. It's a holiday treat.
They served spoiled meat, of course,
Yeah.
that they soaked in vinegar to give it some sort of taste.
As was the tradition at the time.
Yeah, hard to get down, honestly.
Pickled steak.
Frank Stanza was cooking it.
Yeah, right.
Boiled pickled steak.
It was nowhere near enough food. It was nowhere near enough.
It's just
for
crazy
each of them.
to hear that Aramark was operating even back then.
They would even steal food from each other. Like some of the bigger inmates would, like, of course, steal
Give me
food
that
from the other.
spoiled butter.
Yeah, and
Give
they
me
would
that
take it.
cocktail.
Yeah, I mean, it's about
His bread's
preservation.
got 2 dead spiders in it. It's
Yeah.
twice the protein.
That's way more protein. It's better for you, honestly.
Yeah.
At this rate, eventually I'm going to eat a
If it laid
radioactive
eggs in
spider
there,
and get out of here.
That's practically caviar.
Oh, Jesus.
God.
That's so disgusting.
Spider eggs. They hatch in your stomach and all crawl out of your mouth.
Happy Halloween,
Happy
folks.
Halloween.
Jesus Christ. I have nightmares.
Dude, we haven't even touched the boat yet. Let alone rocked it.
Okay.
Don't rock the boat, baby.
Yeah.
It's full of spiders.
Don't tip the boat over.
It's full of spiders. Yeah. They horrify me. Now, the nurses and staff had all good food, actually. They had, like, grapes and meats and all this stuff. And they didn't, like, hide it.
They had actual caviar, not that spider caviar.
Yeah, they have real No, old-timey food. Good food. And they didn't hide it from the inmates. So the inmates got to see them.
Oh, mutton.
No, you're right. You're right. They, like, the inmates were like, what the fuck? And no... But
I can't eat another bite. Throw this in the ocean.
Yeah. Well, and every time somebody would complain, they're like, this is charity. You should be glad that you have anything at all. Mm-hmm.
They're like, it's not charity. I was locked up because I was upset at my husband for adultery, and
you're not far. You're not even far off. You're actually just speaking the truth. Yeah. Honestly.
Told him I wanted a divorce. Next thing I know, I'm here.
There was an actual patient that's why she was there.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was alone, honestly.
It's like, yeah, you're upset about the atrocious way your husband behaves. That's hysteria. You're going in.
One woman was locked up, and the reason why she was put in the Lunatic Asylum was because she gave another man a blowjob. The man was not locked up.
Yeah.
But she was.
That's insane.
Because you would have to be crazy to do that.
You'd have to be crazy to want a blowjob. That guy should go in.
Well, you'd have to be crazy to give one.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And
this whole thing's fucked.
There's got to be a good chance that there was a guy who was like, I heard about a thing from the boys at the office. Why don't you do that to me? And then he had to instruct her how to do it. And she's like, I don't know. This seems pretty weird. Can't we just have regular old sex? And then afterward, he was like, you're crazy.
That's horrific.
Yeah.
But that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
Somebody found out about it and threw her away.
Yep. Yep. And
that's
getting in a time machine and going to the future is scary for me as a white man because it's coming. It's fucking coming. And we deserve all
as
of
a white
it.
man going back, you're fine for a while.
Yeah. But no, going forward, you're going to go it's going to be 50 years.
We're going to be the first up against the wall when the revolution comes.
Oh, no. Yeah. We had it too good.
And I'll be kind of like,
yeah, make it quick.
yeah.
You guys had hundreds of years to do right by society.
Yeah.
And it's
plenty of chances.
We captured a bunch of Europeans before World War II and then took credit for all their inventions.
Now, another thing. So, when you first got there, first things was first, and that was bath time.
That sounds cool. My son
First things first,
okay.
I'll eat your brains.
Nice.
Nicki Minaj.
Yeah. Bath time was first. Now, there was no running water, but there was a way to heat water. There was a steam engine, there was an engine room, there was a steam engine that heated water and gave heating to the buildings.
Everything ran on steam in those days.
Yeah, and
if steampunk is to be believed.
Yeah, and the thing is the way to heat the water is you would have to take it by the bucketful over there, fill up the buckets and take it all the way back. It was a grueling process, honestly, for anyone that was charged with doing it. So, it wasn't feasible, simply not feasible, again, understaffed, underfunded, to change the water every single time. So, all of the patients that needed to be bathed that particular day would all be bathed in the same water. Now, this doesn't seem that bad until we talk about the type of people we're dealing with. These are people pulled off the streets of 19th century New York. These are people that have quote-unquote filthy habits, what they would call back in the day. This is excessive masturbation or playing with your feces, right? And people like this or that have open sores from syphilis are also going in there.
Christ.
People have diseases or fleas or lice or anything like that would also go in the water. And the water would become like a muck by the end of it.
And then they could serve it as soup to the inmates.
Yeah.
And it was ice cold. It was ice cold, of course. It was not warm.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad. And yeah, every time they would bring this up, it's like, it's just not feasible to change the water. It just isn't.
It's really hard to do this, guys. We're doing our best.
They're saying that with
kind of were. They
saying that
kind
with
of
a
were.
mouthful of filet mignon.
Yeah.
I don't think they were fed that well. But
That's hyperbolic.
Yes.
Sure.
Actually, something I learned. Do you guys know what a Black Mariah is?
Snake.
No. It is a...
Mamba.
Yeah,
You're
Black
thinking of
Mamba.
Black Mamba.
Yeah. A Black Mariah.
It's a
The
Tom
first-
Waits song.
First time I heard it
That
was
is
actually
true.
from a Nick Cave song.
Oh, was it Nick Cave's?
The Curse of Millhaven.
Oh,
where
yeah.
she says
Murder
that,
ballads.
yeah, where she says that they took her in an old Black Mariah. It's one of those carriages with the bars on it that say like jail on it, and then they pull you away, and they're like, because they're crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Waits has a song called Big Black Mariah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what they'd pull people around in to take to Blackwell's Island. Fun fact, I guess.
Yeah. Nick Cave and Tom Waits really got a lot of mileage out of this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. The whole career is based on this.
They're like, I feel like there's like a dial on this like kind of like Victorian dark twisted stuff, and there's like one side where it's kind of like more of like an emo kind of goth thing, and then there's one side that's like the Nick Cave, Tom Waits, like it's like a little bit more like, it's a little grittier, it's got more of an edge.
Yeah.
But then there's another,
Gravelly and brutal.
but there's another side to
Like
it
Tom Waits' voice.
as well. That's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have looked underneath that rock.
Yeah.
Like it's like that.
Yeah, like that.
Like I saw a big centipede under there. I should not have done that.
Yeah.
Like that is also what this is like.
You can't unlearn knowing this.
Yeah. That's how this story is. I should put a trigger warning, right guys, before I do any of this, because there are some things about this episode that are pretty intense.
Pretty
We should
triggering.
say it now.
We should say it now. There's a trigger warning. Anyone dealing with severe abuse, anything like that, I'm just going to warn you of listening forward.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that makes sense,
It gets
yeah.
pretty fucking nuts.
I mean,
I'm
it's
gonna warn
already
you
been
right now.
kind of bad, and I bet we're nowhere near
We're
that.
nowhere near it. Nowhere near it.
Talking about the way they, treated women just in general.
Yeah, that was reality for
That's
women.
just the day-to-day life.
That was reality for women and immigrants and anything like that back then. Now, within the asylum itself, there was the main part, and that was like the best part of the whole asylum, was the main
It was
part.
referred to as the main part.
Pretty much. There was like Hall 3, that was like, I guess,
Would
the
you guys
main
like
part
to
of
hang
the
out
whole
in the
place.
main part?
Yeah. That or the Octagon.
Well, the Octagon again met in the middle, but
Yeah.
there was like the main wings of it.
So the
that were, like,
Octagon
the
is like in Ocarina of Time. It's like the big field.
Yeah,
That
it's,
connects
it's,
everything.
it's Hyrule Field.
It's Hyrule Field.
I guess so.
And you got Hyrule Castles at the north, and that's the main part. And then you got the lake, and you got the fucking mountains and the desert, and the place where the fairy folk live.
As long as they're like in wings,
Yeah.
and they're
Have you never played
completely
the game?
closed off.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
No, they don't attach to one another. There
Okay.
might be a little way to get from the mountains to the forest, but I don't remember.
Secret passages.
Are there secret passages?
No.
That's really unfortunate because I feel like this place would really benefit from secret passages.
It's aching for secret passages.
And it sort of is, and you'll see why here in a second. There was the Lodge, which is probably the most notorious place
The Black Lodge.
in there. I mean, you could call it that. The Lodge was the place that they would put the most out of control and violent and loud patients of the asylum in.
Like Killer Bob.
Yeah.
The Black Lodge.
Sure.
Black,
Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Blackwell's Lodge.
Yeah.
Blackwell's Lodge.
Blackwell's Lodge. And then there was the retreat. And the retreat was where they would put you if they were punishing you. It was for punishment.
All these places sound really nice.
They
The
do.
Lodge, the
I know.
retreat.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm
Yeah.
going on a bit of a retreat.
I'm going to go to the pavilion.
Yeah.
I'll get into what all
Yeah, when you
these
said
places
pavilion, I
actually
was
are.
like, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
The Octagon sounds like the worst part because you got to fight people.
Yeah.
No, the Octagon's probably the best part.
It's really just a hallway. It's like
No.
it's a foyer.
Yeah.
Vestibule.
Yeah, it's a vestibule. Yeah.
And again, at night, it was sort of like when the sun went down, because there was no lighting in the place. It was not hooked up with power. So they would have a lantern that was only carried by the attendants and the nurses and
They had
stuff.
one lantern for the whole building.
Pretty much, because at night, there was one person watching over the whole place. Maybe two.
It's like in Clash of the Titans where there's the witches with the one eye.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
watched that recently, so.
And of course, each door was locked individually. So if there was a fire, which there was plenty of chances for there to be a fire, people couldn't be let out, and no one would be. Because the last thing you're thinking if there's a catastrophic fire is to let out the most dangerous crazy people, right?
So instead, just let them burn and die.
Let them burn and die.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how they would deal with it if there was a fire. And there actually was a fire, and actually no one died, crazy enough, because the fire department had to come from the Manhattan side by boat over to the island. And then even then, there was like all the stuff they had to set up and then put it out.
They were very bumbling. It was like the Three Stooges.
The Keystone Firemen.
There was private fire departments back then. It was very different.
It's like in Rome where they're like...
Well, it's like in Gangs of New York, really.
Yeah. Well, you remember what
same
was the
time
thing where
frame.
it's like your house is burning down and they're like, how much you want to...
Wasn't that Pompey?
Pompey, yep.
Yeah.
Well, they did that in the 1800s. Watch Gangs of New York, right?
Yeah. It only recently doesn't happen.
Yeah, Boss Tweed was alive during this time, and he had a fire department as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they would let a home burn if the person didn't want to pay up,
What time
or they'd loot the house.
Mid 1800s.
Yeah, mid 1800s.
Also watch Gangs of New York if you want to see amazing performances and sets and costumes get destroyed by Cameron Diaz and Leonardo DiCaprio's abhorrent Irish accents.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Really good movies with subpar acting.
Yeah.
Now, in the lodge, what makes it unbelievable is that all the rooms were not built along the outer walls. They're all built on the inside. So there's no windows in any of these cells, okay? Windowless rooms on the inside, the interior of the lodge, right?
Got the sun waking you up in the morning. I don't think
You don't have that. How big these cells were, and this is what got me, and it kind of like freaked me out when it sort of occurred to me.
I'm claustrophobic just hearing about it.
Just thinking about it, they were 12 foot by 5 foot.
Oh.
Now, that means you can't spread your arms all the way out.
You can on the 12-foot direction?
Yeah, if you turn sideways, you can, but not the other direction. Which, you can put a completely mentally healthy person in one of these things for an entire night. They're going to come out crazy. In a dark cell with no lights ever.
Oof.
Yeah, you can only turn one way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And think about that. The span of your arms is how tall you are, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about that, think about it that way. So, yeah, the average person couldn't spread their hands all the way open in one of these cells.
That apartment Tyler and I shared, I'm pretty sure it was about that size.
Yeah.
It was definitely
It explains it explains our mental health at that
That's why
point
we're
in time.
insane.
Yeah.
And it was meant for one person. It was meant for one person.
So only one person was ever in there.
Yeah. They only
No.
put one person, and they knew it would be inhumane to just pack them full of people, right?
No.
They knew it would be inhumane
Almost
to do that.
almost
Yes.
immediately, they started putting 2 people in there.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that it was a quote-unquote moral treatment to put up to 6 people into these 12-foot by 5-foot cells together from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. Alone.
There's no bathroom in there?
And locked inside. Nope. Well, there's a chamber pot, and that's it. That's all there is.
Wait,
There's no
that's what
bed.
I meant
There's no
toilet,
bed.
but
One
yeah.
chamber pot for 6 people.
Yes.
They're like...
All night. All night. They would lock them all inside this one building all night with no lights or anything, and one person looking after the place for the whole thing. The capacity for the lodge, to really put it into perspective, was 66. But by 1868, there were 190 people in the lodge.
Well, that's 3 times.
Yeah. I have trouble imagining that. Again, these are the most violent, loud, unstable people you have in New York City, my friend.
Oh my God.
All locked together.
But the least lonely at this point.
They're New York City 10s, and I mean on the 1 to 10 scale of being volatile.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a Seattle 10.
Yeah.
In the volatility scale.
Yeah. And the volatility scale.
Could you... a Seattle 10 is so passive aggressive.
Yeah, you have all these
They're aggressively passive aggressive. They're like, oh, yeah, you're doing really good over there.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even know you.
It's fine that your feet are across my lap at all times.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just kick your feet up higher, man. Just get them really close to my face. It's fine.
And these are dirty conditions, my
Yeah.
friend. These are dirty conditions. Keep that in mind. You're not recently showered. You know
Well,
what I
they
mean?
did bathe at the beginning.
Yeah, and like a couple of times a week, I think.
That's way more than I bathed.
As long as you're the first one to get bathed.
Oh, that must be nice.
Yeah.
Is it warm at that point?
No.
They don't ever bother with me.
No, they don't bother with that
Because
stuff.
I thought maybe it was like It was warm at first.
No. It may have been... No,
Not
it wasn't
fucking
even...
freezing?
Well, even then. And they came from, like, cisterns. And I don't think it was totally clean, the cisterns. But there's actually an account of...
Nothing says clean like a cistern.
Yeah. There's actually an account of 3 women being in one cell, and hearing a disturbance, one of the nurses went in, and there's one nurse, went in and saw that one patient had taken the chamber pot and beaten another one to death with it, and the other woman was in the corner as far away as she could get, like, trying to, like, huddle and hide.
That's what I'd be doing.
The person attending, all they could really do was to lock the door and run and get help.
Be like,
Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
This person is out of control, and they're much bigger than you, and they've already beat one person to death with a chamber pot. Are you going to go in and subdue them?
No.
I don't think so. You know? And she was the one who got reprimanded for it. She was like, oh, you didn't stop them. All you did was lock the door. It's like, what the fuck was I supposed to do?
Shock collars on them. You know?
Yeah.
You got a little button.
Yeah.
But it shocks everybody because you're not going to get a button for each one.
No.
So it's everyone within, like, the radius of the button.
No.
You shock them, and they're like, oh.
Well, truly a horrendous place. You could die there. If from not one thing, then from another.
People did.
They did, all the time.
And anybody who's seen a movie where people need to break out of prison knows what you do is you have, like, one person pretend that, like, they're sick, and then when they come in, you have, like, a person behind the door. So if there's 6 people, like...
There's nowhere to hide.
You go in there, you're pretty much getting into a knife fight in a telephone booth.
It's 5 foot.
Like, I'm not going
it's 5 foot by 12. It's a small hallway.
6 people, jeez.
It's a small hallway. Is what this is. I could not imagine that. Like, it makes me... like, it really does make me claustrophobic thinking about that.
Let's get a tape measure in here. I want to see what that is.
5 by 12.
This room is gigantic compared to
This room is maybe more than 12 feet. Maybe more than 12 feet long.
This way. I think
This
so,
way.
yeah.
And then, 5 feet, if you can imagine, would be about right here. Right? And we're only 3 people. And that would be hellish.
I don't want 2 or 3 more people in here.
Yeah.
It's already stuffy enough with all our man juices flowing.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, there was a couple of hallways for men and for women. Were more. There was more women in there than there were men. Until, of course, they moved them to Ward's Island. Then it was all for women. And of course, the spread of disease. Let me just reiterate. Was a big problem. There was typhoid. There was tuberculosis, dysentery, syphilis. And cholera outbreaks that happened constantly. And even while there were these horrific cholera outbreaks that really killed people by the hundreds.
Diphtheria?
Diphtheria is caused by something else, I believe.
I don't know what that is. It sounds bad.
But, of course, all these things, cholera, typhoid, these things are by contaminated water and food you were eating.
Well, no typhoid.
Yeah.
There's no way they don't have typhoid.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and... Typhoid Mary actually was lucky.
Well, she didn't go to one of these.
Well, she went to one of the new ones that was open after Blackwell's was closed, to North Brother Island, a little further away. She was lucky to be alive in the time she was to miss Blackwell's. Otherwise, she would have most certainly gone to Blackwell's, which is insane when you really think about it.
Really?
But even with these outbreaks, people were still being sentenced there. Yeah. So you can only, it's like... Dude, what the fuck are you thinking sending people here when you know damn well that people are dying in droves of cholera and typhoid and tuberculosis?
Well, didn't I
That is
hear
insanity.
Like, COVID is a real problem in the prison population.
Oh, yeah. And especially at Rikers. Yeah. Which is another place that they opened to close Blackwell's. And we'll get to that point also. Now, if somebody needed punishing, they'd go to the retreat. And that was like solitary confinement, where they would throw you in, with the straitjacket. And just sort of forget about you in there for a little while.
Hey, at least you don't have to worry about getting tuberculosis by being around the other patients, right?
You still get typhoid from yourself.
Yeah.
You're in a windowless room in some sort of confinement. They would also put you in a crib. And what the cribs were is they sort of looked like children's cribs, except they were probably
smaller than a child's
little over a foot deep, and they sort of had like those. It was made of wood, They had those wood bars. And then they had a top to it that would close and lock. So your whole body would be in a wooden cage.
It's like a coffin.
It is a coffin. There'd be a wooden cage. And there was even somebody who visited and saw somebody in a crib. And they said that the person in there squirmed around like a squirrel in this thing. And they would leave them for full days and nights in these things. And I could not imagine. I could not imagine being locked into one of these things. And during one of these investigations...
They shit piss themselves in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's so fucked up.
During one of these investigations, because like the government, of course, had to have investigations into abuses at Blackwell's Island.
They're like, I see nothing wrong here. This seems perfectly
that's
reasonable.
exactly what he said on the stand, and I'm not even exaggerating. He said, yeah, honestly, you can breathe in there; it's totally fine. And he goes, honestly, I wish we had more of them. I wish we had more cribs. And, like, one of the senators was appalled, and he was like, have you ever been in a crib? And he's like, no. And he goes, how about you spend a night in a crib before you fucking tell me how bad a crib is or is not?
Hey, at least there's some people that aren't monsters in this time period, or else this would have just kept on going on.
Yeah. Well, it did keep going on, because even though people were outraged by these things, it was like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? Because you're not working there. You want to go work there? And people found out that like the nurses that worked there were paid as much as like the Irish maids. They would go and like work at a house. They're paid just as much as like Bridget Sullivan. Or Typhoid Mary, paid just about the same. Like indentured servant wages to work in one of these places.
I mean, honestly, Bridget Sullivan, as much as that sucked, had a pretty sweet gig compared to that.
Yes.
She gets to live in a mansion.
She was paid well. She was paid better than these nurses.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she didn't pay for room and board. You know, she had to wash windows in blistering heat. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, they had to live there, too.
Yeah.
They lived at Blackwell's, too. In the Octagon, you know. So that it's not exactly the best place to live.
I live and die in the Octagon.
And all of the inmates of like the workhouse and the prisons, they made all of the stuff. They made the cribs, they made the garments, they made the coffins that you were eventually buried in.
Both the alive coffins and the dead coffins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which are just the cribs, but without the slats on the side.
Exactly. Yeah.
They come from the same guy.
Yeah. Now, one woman, this story, as soon as I heard it, it blew my mind. Honestly, it was one of those where I was like, I can't fucking believe this really happened. One woman was being loud and difficult with the filthy habits they were talking about. So they took her to the retreat, and they threw her in a solitary cell, in a straitjacket. They didn't take her out of the straitjacket. They put her in there with the straitjacket on, and they sort of forgot about her, I guess. Oof. And she gave birth alone in a dark, windowless room in a straitjacket. She gave birth.
So they just made like probably one of history's most notorious serial killers by doing, because that's like literally like some like Nightmare on Elm Street, you know,
horrific
Son of a Thousand Maniacs kind of situation.
Yeah, it's like worse than what is described in horror movies. That is worse.
Yeah, that kid is gonna grow up to be like a villain in like a Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah, the kid probably never grew up.
Yeah,
the kid probably didn't make it past a couple of months.
Would be the best case scenario for him.
Yeah. Honestly, yes, that's the best case scenario. No, the kid, there's no record what happened to the kid, but it probably didn't survive a couple of months.
Not a good sign.
Probably didn't.
Also, how did the patient get pregnant?
A lot of different ways.
I kind of assumed, and I didn't, you know.
A bunch of ways not consensual.
This is an out-of-control patient. Yeah. Again, they thought that she was complaining of pains, and they claimed that they didn't know that she was pregnant. And that she was complaining of pains because she would regularly eat grass or the fabric on her clothes and of the small straw-lined mattress that they gave her, and she would eat the straw out of that as well.
I know where Chris is going with this, and I 100% agree.
She has eaten for two.
Jesus Christ.
I was going to actually...
oh, God.
I was going to say that women who are pregnant and malnourished will start getting... They'll start eating weird stuff because their body's like...
pickles and ice cream. Yeah, I was
Well, like, no, like women will eat
I
like
know what you
handfuls of dirt if they're like malnourished, and it's because they're pregnant and their body's like, you need to
I
get
was
these nutrients
thinking
to grow this
And they're
baby.
not getting her enough food at all. At
so
all.
they're like, why is she being so crazy eating grass in the lining of her bed or whatever?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a natural instinct to try to protect the baby.
yeah.
To get enough nutrients. So, I made a really awful joke, but
No,
honestly, it is.
She was eating for 2.
It's more truthful than you know.
The whole thing is extremely fucked up, and that is
I couldn't believe that.
the enormous amount of victims in this situation, and victims of the state.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's
Well, it didn't
literally
belong
the
to the
state
state.
doing
It didn't
this.
belong to the state until
I meant
the late
state.
1800s.
I
but
meant
yeah.
state as in the most
governing.
anthropological term.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, no record of exactly what happened to her afterwards either. Couldn't have been good. Honestly, couldn't have been good.
Yeah, I doubt it got better from there.
No, couldn't have been.
They were like, "Oh, dearie me, we didn't realize you were pregnant. Let's take care of you right now, and your I was gonna say unborn child, but born child now."
Your newborn child.
Yeah, no. I'm at a loss when it comes to that.
It's really fucked
that's
up.
tough. That's tough.
Really fucked up.
Yeah, she was totally pregnant, and they had no idea.
How long was she in there?
A couple of days. And I guess they just never checked. They never checked. They were used to hearing people scream.
So they would have known she was pregnant when they put her in there.
They
Bullshit.
claim during the investigation that they didn't know.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what I say,
Did
too.
they also uncover in the investigation that all the people that claimed things were trying to cover their own asses because they're
yeah.
underpaid and incompetent?
Yep.
Like,
And if anyone, like, if any of the inmates raised, like, a stink about it and, like, said it to, like, the higher up, because, like, every once in a while, the administrator would walk through and be like, we'll kind of talk about this later, when Nelly Bly goes in there to sort of report on it, he comes through and he goes like, "Hello, how are you today?" To, like, the inmates, like, writhing on the ground and stuff. And, like, just like, "I'm doing my rounds."
Ugh.
And it's like, once a month or once a week or something like that, he would do this. And it's just like Nelly Bly calls it, like, she was like, his words sounded like cold ice, like, it was so terrible.
Was she the one that kind of blew the lid off this?
Yes, and I'm going to get to that point, too.
I can't
Yeah.
wait for her to get this place shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who that person is. I don't know if they're famous outside of this.
Let me get there.
I'm just saying.
She certainly is. She certainly is. And another thing that people realized is that there were a lot of people that were there that had no proof of admittance. They had no paperwork that said that they were put in here.
Oh, so they're free to go.
No. they had nothing that said their name on it, that said they are being admitted. There was no one that there was proof. There was proof of no one putting them there in the first place. And there was no documentation of how long they had even been there. There was 20 people at one point. No proof of how long they had been there or who had put them in there and when.
Mm-hmm. I take back my earlier statement of saying it was society's junk drawer, because even society's junk drawer, you open it to grab some rubber bands or batteries or tacks every once in a while. Like,
not these people. These people were forgotten about.
Yeah, it's a garbage can.
It is. It's a garbage can. It's a garbage can. Here's a couple of things I thought were interesting. In 1874, there was, the annual report. Every year you'd come out with a report. They had a list of basically terms of residence for the people that were living there. The people that were there from 5 to 10 years, there was 79 that were already there from 5 to 10 years. 10 to 20 years, 99. 20 to 30 years, 93. 30 to 40 years, 12. 40 to 50 years in this place, 3. 60 to 70 years, 1.
Oh.
There was one that was there that long.
How old was this person?
I don't know.
72.
A lifetime.
They got put there for the terrible. They got put in there for the terrible twos.
Yeah. A lifetime, 84 people for a lifetime, and 20, no idea. No idea.
So dark.
It's supposed to be a hospital, not a prison, but they get sentenced like it's a prison.
And
so it's a prison.
It's sort of something in between.
At least at the
right?
50 years mark, you get a free pair of sunglasses.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
You get you get a pair of sunglasses, and eventually
You get your name in the local newsletter.
yeah.
I could be on the front of the newspaper.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
You've spent your entire life living in hell, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Children were born there and died there. Many children and infants died there.
You're gonna need those sunglasses when you see the sun for the first time. God damn.
The mortality rate of this place in its worst year was 8.4%. That's annually. That's a year.
Holy shit!
8.4% died there. Died.
Every year.
Every year. During that year, at least.
The entire 8% died. Yeah.
It was actually worse, and this is the worst year when there wasn't a cholera outbreak. So it was actually worse during those years.
Oh, you don't count those years.
Not counting where there's an outbreak of a disease.
Yeah.
It was
8.4%,
8.4%.
and frankly, it was kind of nice. We could just start over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Clean
house.
slate. Yeah. Yeah. What's that spike? Oh, don't worry about that. That's a cholera year.
Yeah, that's a cholera
We don't
year.
count those.
Yeah, no. And of course, there were experiments that doctors were trying at this time on the patients because
Why not?
the 19th century was going through a renaissance of medical. How do I put this? Medical innovation.
Yeah.
And where that
I
innovation
thought you were going to say
came from-
bullshit.
No. Where that innovation came from was a lot of things like this, and for good and bad. Because there was, of course, the hospital that was still on the island. Joseph Lister actually did a lecture there where he showed everyone what to do when you're operating on a body to sanitize everything. Everything, literally everything.
Who has time for that?
Oh, and that's the way they looked at it too. But then there was some medical hucksters, humbugs is what they called them in this time, that would go and do their medical experiments. There was a boy, I could be getting some of these details wrong. Again, go read Damnation Island, it's so good. But there was a boy who, his leg was broken.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, they didn't know why bones of children didn't fuse right. You know, they tried wiring the bones together and that didn't work. They didn't really understand that you had to put it in a cast and stuff. So what they were going to do instead of amputation, because that's what that's their main thing. He was like, I've had some success in transferring, I'm not making this up, dog bones into a human.
So that kid died.
No, he didn't. But let me tell you the story
Wait,
real quick.
What?
Yeah.
No.
So let me tell you this.
Before you get into that,
Yeah.
you're telling me that he had some success.
That's what he says.
The body
He
can
says.
accept a dog bone as its own.
That's what he says.
You know how many human kidneys aren't accepted?
Most of them.
He was wrong. He was
He's
using
lying.
it. He was using it as an excuse to try this experiment.
He's lying.
The parents gave their child to this.
I don't buy it. Too specially different.
Yep.
So what happened is I've already done a trigger warning, but I'm going to do another one right here.
Yeah, I might leave the room.
This is pretty horrible. They got a dog. He clipped the dog's vocal cords so it wouldn't whine and bark during the procedure because they didn't have anything like anesthetic during procedures. They couldn't knock you out, right? So you're awake the whole time, right? They had morphine and stuff, but
Did
you're
this
awake
to
all
the
the time.
dog?
Oh yeah, they clipped the vocal cords on the dog so he
They
couldn't
remove
bark.
the dog's bones. Is that right?
They were going to, yeah, they were going to cut open the dog, take the bone out.
Well, the dog
put him
was
in-
awake
Yes,
And alive.
and
And
honestly,
raw.
and raw.
clipping the dog's vocal cords didn't really work. The dog still whined. The boy could still hear the dog whine as this was happening.
Well, that's got to be.
And they
That doesn't
transferred
help.
the living tissue of the dog into the boy, still connected. And the thought is that the blood from the dog would sort of go over into the boy, and eventually the blood, the boy's body would sort of take hold from there, and then they could sort of,
Integrate it into its.
yeah, and they could sort of remove it, and it would be fine.
No.
Right? After a couple of days of laying there on a gurney, and
This is I love
everything-
Dr. Moreau shit.
everything getting worse for both patients, the doctor, when he talked to the press, he's like, everything's going great. And they were like, well, that dog looks really distressed. Isn't that dog in a lot of pain? It's like, it's only because all the people are around and there's all this like sort of distress with the dog.
And we took its legs.
Yeah, and he was wrong.
And we gave that boy dog legs.
Well, he was wrong because the dog stopped eating. And when an animal stops eating like that, it's usually because they're feeling an immense amount of pain. And that's why this happened to this dog. And by, I think day 3 or something, the rest of the doctors were like, hey, dude, you gotta take that fucking bone out. We gotta stop this whole thing. And so he did, and he stopped talking to reporters after that, because he was, ashamed.
Yeah.
And the kid's no record what happened to the dog. Almost certainly dead after that.
Yeah, the dog.
But the kid, actually, he had a leg that was much shorter than his other leg. And
they probably broke the,
He went on...
plate.
He went on to actually he got a really nice education after this and actually moved up in the world. He was the exception, not the rule. But yeah, actually it turned out well for the boy in the end, I should say. But the dog, story.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty bad.
He's like,
Remember
usually
you
you
told
have
us
to get a
about
rabbit's foot to have luck this good. I got a dog's whole leg.
Yeah.
Cha-cha-cha-cha, ring-a-ding-ding.
Talking about palate cleansers.
Oh, you want a palate
I think
cleanser?
I need one after that.
Okay.
That's fucking...
Yeah, that's fucked up.
I probably should ask for one after the pregnant woman.
Yes. Okay, I got one for you. Today on Roosevelt Island, there is a park named after the actor who played Grandpa Munster.
Oh, Grandpa Monster Park.
Well, what's his real name?
How would I fucking know?
Somebody look it up.
Is he famous?
Yeah, it's Grandpa Munster.
Is he famous for other than that?
I don't. Well, yeah, I think so. I think he was like
Laurence Olivier.
No.
Who was in Clash of the Titans.
Yes, he
I
is.
watched
He
recently.
plays Zeus.
Apparently he was really sick.
That makes sense.
He's really old.
You're thinking of Al Lewis?
Al Lewis. There's an Al Lewis Park on Roosevelt Island to this day.
Yeah, if you
Named after
Google him...
Grandpa Munster.
he looks... He's doing a Grandpa Munster face, but I think that just might be his face.
That's his face.
Well, I mean...
He's like...
Chris is like, is he famous for anything that wasn't the Munsters? What about Munster Go Home? The Munsters Revenge? Here Come the Munsters.
Munster's Revenge.
My grandpa's a vampire.
Munsters Take Manhattan.
Car 54, where are you?
The mini...
He looks... You know who he looks like? Hollywood heartthrob, Richard Kind.
Oh,
Yeah, he actually does.
a little
Come
bit, yeah.
on. Yeah, she
A little
does.
bit, yeah. Don't forget he was in Porn Star, The Legend of Ron Jeremy, that horrible criminal and rapist who's going to jail for his crimes.
Wait, he was in a movie about Ron Jeremy?
Apparently, according to his,
IMDb.
yeah.
Oh, he died on Roosevelt Island.
Yeah.
He was born on
He
Roosevelt.
died in that park. That's probably why they named it after
Yeah,
that.
maybe.
He was murdered. He
And
went
I-
by a junkie.
He was the baby that was born in the fucking in solitary, man. Think
doubt
about
it.
He was
Well,
born in 1923, so...
well,
There were no more patients at Blackwell's in 1923.
It was a party of the Green Party of the United States.
Ah.
That's cool.
But I guess he did things for the community, and they named a park after him.
Well, yeah.
That's a good palate cleanser, right,
yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he likes green. They named a park after him.
Yeah. Now they would also conduct other experiments, because they would give people whiskey and brandy to calm them down.
I like that.
Which doesn't always work. But they would also inject it straight into your veins.
Oof.
Brandy, thinking that would calm you down. It doesn't.
Get you shit-faced.
It's horrible for you. Don't do that. They would also they conducted an experiment where they a very extremely mentally ill person, they injected her with human milk.
Why?
Because they thought it would make her more robust. And
This is some Mangala shit.
she writhed. It was very painful, and they were like, let's stick with morphine from now on. That's literally what they said. Let's stick with morphine from now on, because that didn't work.
Oh, God.
There's they're like, I was just thinking the other day while I was eating my mutton in front of all the prisoners, patients, and they were staring at my lunch, and and I was drinking this glass of milk, and I was thinking, what if we just inject them with milk?
Yeah. Human milk.
Human
We're
milk.
not animals here.
Yeah.
And you don't have cows on the island.
No. No.
But that one woman just had a baby, so
We'll just get it from her.
Yeah.
that's fucking disgusting. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Now, patients, of course, were abused, and a lot of the commonplace, daily occurrence abuses that would happen to them, they'd be drugged by the hair if they weren't doing something. They'd be drugged by the hair to what they were going to do, such as bath time, or sitting against the wall. I'm going to get to that here in a second. They were pinched.
Ow.
They were choked.
Ow.
Their arms were twisted, and their thumbs were bent backwards.
Ah.
So they could obey by the nurses and orderlies.
Just a bunch of fucking bullies.
Yeah.
This place turns you into a monster.
If they had indoor plumbing, they get swirlies.
Yeah.
I just figured it was like the whole place was run by a bunch of older brothers. You guys know.
Yeah. I'm an older brother.
Yeah, and so is Chris.
But I have a younger sister.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's a little different. Yeah.
Like, I didn't beat the shit out of her.
I didn't do anything that bad to my brother.
I
didn't drag him by the hair.
I accidentally hit her with a stick one time when she was blindfolded.
One time, I had a camping pot, and I was going to pretend to hit my brother on the head with a pot, like a Three Stooges type thing, but the handle came off right as I stopped, and the pot came down and hit him on the head, and it was kind of a cheap pot, so it bent the thing, but my brother thought that was so funny, the fact that it came off and did hit him, it was sort of a cartoon situation, that we didn't get in trouble for it, so now it's kind of a funny story.
My brother choked me out, and when I passed out on the floor and woke up 10 minutes later with a huge bump on my head and was like, what happened? And started crying,
God.
My brother realized that I wasn't faking passing out, and he just left me back there for, I don't know how long I was out for.
Jesus
And he, like, it was one of
Christ.
those, like, don't tell dad, and he, like, touched the bump on my head, and it was like a cartoon, like, woo, bump.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was real bad. Real bad. So.
The story he must have wove to get out of that one.
Oh, it was bad. But yeah.
There was one force of good in this place. His name was Reverend William Glennie French. And in the book, Damnation Island, she writes about, because he was there for a long time, about, he was Episcopalian, and he sort of tried to get all of the Protestants on the island to come to his services, because that's when the only time he could really meet with people. But it was sort of general, right? And he would invite Catholics, that was the predominant religion in the asylum as well, because a lot of them are Irish. Yeah, he was a force of good. He would get on a boat every day, go to the island, and he would walk the length of the island. He would walk and see everybody. Sometimes he was joined by a boy named Johnny the Horse.
Okay.
He was a boy that believed himself to be a horse, and he acted like a horse, and he had a rope sort of tied around him that looked like a tail. He would deliver packages sometimes. I guess he was perfectly happy in his situation, and he was moved around a lot in his lifetime, but he sadly never got better.
No.
From a situation.
It didn't help that every time people saw him, they're like, why did they call him the horse? And then he walked out from behind the desk, and they're like, oh my god, that kid's got a huge dick.
Jesus Christ. That's so fucked up. No, he would, neigh and whinny and stamp around and, that kind of thing. But he seemed in good spirits, is what everyone said.
That's good.
Yeah. But Reverend French would carry around stuff in his pockets. Little pieces of paper with a pencil, in case anyone wanted to write anyone on the outside. He would actually mail letters for them. He would also give them reading material, because they had nothing to read in there.
Yeah.
He actually put together one of the first libraries for the asylum and for the island, really. He actually begged people for things in German, because there was nothing in German, so somebody reading it with their native tongue, was definitely desperately wanted.
So was the entire library like found items?
Yes, things that were donated.
Yeah.
Things that were donated.
So it's like a bunch of Bibles, and then a card that says rules for 5-card stud and blackjack.
I mean, you're probably not far off. Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Rules for Pharaoh. Teach him how to gamble.
Yeah, this isn't a book. Well, in a lot of ways, the instructions card is just a book with one page.
Well, and honestly, they wanted something, anything, because like living
Shampoo
there,
bottles,
anything to pass the time. Anything that happened there was like big, because just sitting there doing nothing, the minutes ticked by.
It's enough to make a person go crazy.
It really is. If you weren't crazy beforehand, and many of them weren't, you would be when you left. You would be.
It's like, I told you these people were crazy.
Yeah. And that's... Yeah, we'll get into that too later. He also got in trouble and almost lost his job because when the Senate had an investigation, they had multiple investigations. The first one was actually set up by Teddy Roosevelt Sr., his daddy. And Teddy Roosevelt, much later, when he got involved in New York politics, led an investigation on Blackwell's Island again. And during the Progressive era, helped clean it up, helped get rid of a lot of these problems. Anyway, I'm jumping the gun here. But he helped get a lot of things. I mean, even just a piece of candy he would give somebody, and that would give them a piece of joy.
Yeah.
A small piece of joy that they could have while they were there.
Happiness is relative, man.
Yeah. They would have magic lantern shows there.
Okay.
Which, there's like little puppets in front of a lantern, and it would give the illusion of like a picture show, and they all loved it. And they'd play music sometimes. They actually have done recent studies on this too, that music helps the very severely mentally ill bring their pulse down. It helps them relax. It actually does bring them joy, something that they barely understood back in these days.
There's like an orderly who's like, "Oh, this Mozart seems to be calming him down. Let's throw on some Grieg. Let's throw on some Wagner. Let's see how crazy we can make these guys act.
Let's put on some Danzig."
Put on some Danzig.
And one thing that the papers of the time, including that old rag, the New York Sun, liked to write about, was the Lunatics Ball.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Where every once in a while, I think it was once a year, they would get the lunatics and staff and everyone together, and they would all dance.
Cool.
This really reminds me of a documentary that was banned when it first came out, that I own a bootleg copy to, because it was hard to find for a long time. Now you can actually find it online. I think it's on YouTube, but it's called Titty Cut Follies.
Yep.
And it's about a 20th century insane asylum. It was banned because of, they're just showing you what's happening in the Titty Cut insane asylum. It's called Titty Cut Follies because every year they would bring out the mentally ill, and they would put on a show for people, and they would sing songs and all that kind of thing.
That doesn't sound exploitive at all.
No, and the warden would get up, because the warden thought of himself as like a Buddy Hackett type of guy. He'd get up there and he'd tell jokes and stuff, and like he would sing as he's walking around, and it's one of the most disgusting displays you'll ever see. I have a hard time recommending it to anyone.
The best thing,
but go check that out if you want to.
The best thing about it is, like, the reason it gets banned. It's like, well, you're exploiting these people. It's like, no, we're showing that they're being exploited.
Exactly.
But know that was the
that was the argument. Yeah. Well, and they were saying this is just too disgusting for public consumption.
We don't need people to know what's literally happening.
Yeah. And there's no narration or anything to hold your hand in this documentary. It's literally just people speaking and showing you what's going on and what it's like in there. It's bad.
Brutal.
And that's the 20th century. Now, Nelly Bly absolutely deserves her own episode, and you will get that, dear listener, because she is a remarkable person. She is honestly one of my favorite historical figures.
Hashtag feminism, hashtag girl boss.
Jesus. She was a journalist who pioneered investigative journalism. She wasn't the first, and she didn't invent it, but she pioneered it. And she was 23 when she took on this assignment for the New York World newspaper, whose editor was a man named, maybe you've heard his name before, Joseph Pulitzer.
Oh.
Yeah. Her and him sort of got together, and I don't know whose idea it was. They got together and decided that Nelly was going to get herself committed to Blackwell's Island. She was going to go in, she was going to pretend she was crazy, and she was going to go there Joseph Pulitzer was like, oh, we'll get you out, dude. Our lawyers will get you out after 10 days. You're going to spend 10 days in there. Now, this is something I would never do. I could never do what she did.
Like swimming with sharks, man. Like,
again, even just working there, you're taking your life in your hands.
Yeah.
If it's not the violence there, if it's not the abuse there, it's the disease.
yeah.
You know, it is bad.
Not
there.
to mention that slight fear that, like, what if, like, Pulitzer, like, has a heart attack and dies while you're in there? And
Well,
then...
and the only person that knew about this whole deal between Pulitzer and Nelly Bly were just those two.
Mm-hmm.
If he did step off of a streetcar and get hit,
yeah.
which happened a lot back in those days, she would have been forgotten in there.
Or what if he goes to dinner and then hears from a third party that she was talking shit about him? And he's like, you know what? Fucking let it rock.
Part of me is like, men were and are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That people
But he was
do
giving
women
away a
back then.
prize down the road. He has a prize named after him.
Yeah, for journalism.
Yeah, I mean,
Was
those,
she actually
those
there
people
for
aren't.
10 days?
Oh yeah. She has a book.
No,
By the way-
I meant the other way. It was like they actually. I'm kind of impressed that they actually did get her out.
Yes, they're lawyers who are high-powered New York lawyers of the time got her out.
She did, yeah.
She did. She spent the full 10 days in
Wow.
there. She has a book. It's a very short book, but I highly recommend you read it because it reads like a fucking horror novel. Her book is called 10 Days in a Madhouse, and it was an expose on Blackwell's Lunatic Asylum.
Mm-hmm.
It is horrific, the things that she describes. First of all, how easy it is to get in. Because she was just pretending to be crazy. And the whole time she's like, I don't know, everything's so sad. Like, she went to, like, a woman's poorhouse and convinced everyone there that she was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
By just being like, everything's so sad and da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, well, I don't want to live next to a crazy girl. And so, like, they called the police and had her drug out of there. And, like,
Wow.
yeah, when they, like, took her to court and stuff, and they were like, do you hear voices? And she's like, yeah, but I don't listen to them. They're like, she's crazy. And like, and they were like, hey, put out your arms and wiggle your fingers. Because that was, I guess, a test to see if you were crazy, if you could or could not do that. I don't know the whole reasoning behind it. But she did, and they're like, she's crazy. And like, anything she would do at this point now was construed as crazy.
Yeah, she didn't have to act.
Now she didn't. And honestly, when she was on the boat going to the island, she was like, I'm dropping the act.
Yeah.
And she just stopped playing crazy. And she like talked.
I could not imagine it mattered.
Yeah, and she like talked with doctors about like conditions and stuff. And they were like, where else have you been other than here? And she's like, I'm talking about the locks on the doors. Now they're all locked individually, and it's impossible to get anyone out in case of a fire. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Why don't you have that like lever system that like unlocks all the doors?
Yeah.
And they're like, where'd you see that at? The only place I've seen that is Sing Sing.
Yeah.
So they're
know.
like, you've been to Sing Sing.
Yeah, and she's like, no, I haven't. And they're like, you're crazy.
They're like,
know.
they know about it at Sing Sing.
I know, right? And so...
Well, luckily, when everybody in the room has essentially discounted like your authority and your presence, like they'll just tell you things.
Yeah.
Like she could probably be like, "What's your name?" And they're like, "Here's my full name and address because you're crazy and you don't matter,
and you will never get out of here."
Yeah.
Because that was like an accepted thing too. You'll never get out. In fact, when she first got there, she says in her book, and she could have conflated things. I tend to believe 99.9% of everything she wrote, but she said that there was like a guy, and I way imagine it from a horror movie, like picking up a lantern.
Yeah.
She, the guy's like, "This is Blackwell's, and you'll never get out of here." Like the guy straight up told her that, like, "You'll never get out of here." She goes in for bath time. She sees what bath time is like, and how like they pour water over her, and like they grab her, rip off her clothes, and she refuses to take off her undergarments. This is Victorian times, guys.
She's
Women
a
don't get nude, okay? They rip off her clothes. They, like, 4 of them take her and put her in the bathtub.
In the
and, like,
soup?
scrub her down in the soup, pour all this disgusting water over the top of her. She says, like, it got in my eyes, up in my nose, in my ears, in my mouth. And, like, pull you out, shivering, and, like, totally humiliated in front of everybody, and, like, give you your rags of clothes and, like, send you on your way.
Welcome to the twisted baptism.
Yeah. She talks about, like, she was in the best part of the place, by the way. in like the place where they kept like the quiet and the convalescent, right?
Minimum
I don't know how
security.
I don't know how anyone is convalescent in this place, but that's what they said. But she was talking with other inmates and realized very quickly that very few of these women are actually insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like one woman that she met simply didn't speak English. She was a German speaker, and no one could understand her. She didn't know why she was there. She didn't know where she was, and she kept asking people in her native tongue, "Where am I? What the fuck? Get me out of here."
Yeah.
And every time they'd be like, "Germany?" She'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." They'd be like, she's crazy.
She thinks she's in Germany.
She's like, "I'm from Germany." You know?
Think about being the level of effort, being so lazy that you're like, this person doesn't speak English. Just throw them in a mental hospital.
Yeah, and that's what they did. Yeah, because she was probably just being loud and difficult somewhere at some point, and they were like, "You're crazy."
Yeah.
And they grabbed her off the street and tossed her in there, probably with no documentation or anything. Probably no record of who put her there and when, or how long she'd been there. But here she is, a newly arrived immigrant.
Yeah.
In one of these places. Horrible to think about.
I'm so glad that we've the way that we treat new immigrants in this country is so much better.
It's never
now.
stopped. It's never stopped. It's still going.
We're still
this day.
playing McCabe.
This is still happening, by the way.
I know.
This is not like something that existed back then. That's still happening to this day. So when you look back and you try to be like, those stupid Victorians. No. This is still happening as we speak to this day. Yeah, just want to make that clear. There's one that she spoke with in the book, but there were multiple women that were in there because their husbands had put them in. One man put his wife in because she preferred the attention of other men other than him.
So it wasn't just that he was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Or wasn't very interesting, or what have you.
Yeah.
It was that she was crazy to not think he was awesome.
And any of these courts that they put you through to get there, those could all be bought too. So it was far from justice. It was very far from justice, I guess. It's all an illusion of justice, I guess.
I hope when I do take a time machine into the future, I mean, mostly white men are being subjugated for the horrible things that our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers did, and we totally deserve it. It's everything the right fears what will happen with the rise of feminism and equality and equity, and it's totally going to happen and we deserve it. But what I'm going to say is that when that happens, I hope that the women and current day minorities and whoever's in charge, the diverse characters that are in charge in the future, I hope that they're running rampant with corruption because they realize that it has nothing to do with the fact that that of who we are. It's just the fact when you give people that much power and authority with zero accountability, anyone can be a piece of shit.
Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah.
I always kind of go back to that. Yeah, and no oversight. No oversight to speak of. Especially if you just don't have what you need to actually take care of people. It does. It turns the most sane, good, intended person into a complete monster. And this is one of the best examples I can think of. Yeah. She also noted that there were mainly immigrants packed in with the legitimately mentally ill. Here's a couple quotes that I just found astounding from her book, because she was put in the pavilions too. And when they put you in the pavilions, it's a big empty room, and it's lined with benches all the way around it. And they'd put you in there, and they'd make you sit up straight on these benches for the whole day, and you're not supposed to move or speak, make any noise or move. So you're sitting on a wooden bench, back straight up, the whole day. And they're just left in there, expected to be that way. And if you weren't, you were beaten. You were beaten. And there are people in there that are again, severely mentally ill. And people that are becoming mentally ill inside there. And she even says, man, I just don't know. Here's a quote. As I passed a low pavilion where a crowd of helpless lunatics were confined, I read a motto on the wall. While I live, I hope. The absurdity of it struck me forcibly. I would have liked to put above the gates that open to the asylum, he who enters here leaveth hope behind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was like, put anybody along a wall
Like
for the
Dante's
whole
Inferno.
goddamn day. Yeah.
And
they're gonna fucking go insane.
Yeah.
Like, and this is the good part.
Yeah.
You know? She also has another quote. Quote, "It is only after one is in trouble that one realizes how little sympathy and kindness there are in the world."
Oof.
End quote.
No,
And that's true.
and that's true to this day.
It is. It is. Now, there was, of course, rough treatment. There was abuse, verbal abuse as well, where, like, even doctors would go up to somebody who was raving and make fun of them. Like, oh yeah, where's the voice coming from now? And they would laugh about it, and they would tease them, and they would, you know, all the things that would piss off somebody in this state.
Well, and any doctor that's there did something wrong.
I mean, no, because in a lot of cases, they were fresh out of medical school.
Okay.
One of them, that oversaw, he was like the main doctor of the whole thing, he was 19 years old.
Oh.
19, and he's commanding this whole place.
Well, and that's the other avenue. No experienced medical professional who has a practice. They're not like, I'm dropping everything to go help these people. It's either people who need the experience or people that are like hiding from something because they're not very good doctors, or maybe they got
And there were those types too.
Yeah.
And they had a horrible track record. You can also read about it in Damnation Island. People that were charged, and they weren't locked up or anything. They just went to another town and opened up a new place and kept on their same practices, which still continues to this day in a lot of different realms. She describes about how impossible it is to sleep there with all the people around you in the same cell. Some people never shut up. They are yelling and screaming the whole night. She describes hearing voices from down the hall, somebody just intermittently screaming, "Murder! Police! Murder!
Oh, jeez.
Police!" And she's like, fuck. Because she heard about, people being beat to death inside
And
there.
after a while, you're like, this guy's just crying wolf.
Well, Jesus. She actually was like, I'm going to go full bore. I'm going to go into the lodge. And the other inmates were like, you don't want to go in there. You don't want to go in there. You might die in there. That place might actually kill you, and they might actually legitimately forget about you in there. You don't want to go in there. So she didn't. But that shows you how terrifying the lodge was, because Nelly Bly was fucking fearless.
Yeah.
This isn't
Sounds
the
like it.
only thing she did. Like, she did multiple other things that it would never even cross our mind to do.
She's awesome.
She is. She's a badass. And she actually went in under Nelly Brown.
Okay.
So she could still answer to Nelly B. Anyway, again, she totally dropped any semblance of the crazy act. She witnessed people being way too cold and freezing, and refusing to cooperate and being beaten. She witnessed all of these things, and when her lawyers finally got her out, there was a man that she had known for a long time that did not recognize her when she was taken out after the 10 days. She looked horrible. And the people that were removed from this place and taken home by their family would sometimes die days later, emaciated, bruised, with lesions and sick, maybe.
Hashtag woke up like this.
And so there was a whole inquest that this started, because it sold newspapers.
Well, it's salacious. It's provocative.
Yeah.
And,
And there were that old rag, the Sun, accused her of lying. They're a yellow journalist newspaper accusing her of lying.
Well, that's what you
That's
do.
great.
Yeah.
The ones that are most full of shit.
Yeah.
Look at
And they
Fox
are.
News.
And they are. The most full of shit.
Smearing a legitimate journalist seems to be almost the most natural sounding thing for a yellow journalism rag to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get people to not trust legitimate media so that you can manipulate them in any way you want.
Yeah.
Well, you can just point the finger, fake news here, fake news there, and they will follow.
Yeah.
Right. She, of course, denied this, but she became like a celebrity And she went on to do all these other amazing things. Again, she will get her own episode.
Yeah.
She's amazing. But what this did do is it gave more money, $1 million more money, to the system itself. It barely helped. It barely helped. The abuses didn't stop. There was a couple of problematic nurses that were taken out. Certain things like this.
Replaced with more problematic nurses.
During the actual inquest, things got real nice in there.
Yeah.
There was actually one woman that wasn't crazy that took the stand who had gotten out. And she was like, yeah, after fucking Nelly was taken out, they all of a sudden started treating us real well, you know? And it was, very suspect, you know? They were putting on a show for the investigators, basically.
Yeah.
Because shit went straight down the tubes after that.
Well, and if everybody's doing that, they know what they were doing before, and they know what they were doing before was wrong.
Yes, because if you lie about it and you have to deny it, that means you know it was wrong in the first place. You know, when you downplay things, you knew it was wrong to begin with. You know,
Yeah.
it is wrong.
But if you act like you know that it was wrong, and you say things have changed, now you can get away with continuing to do that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. There was actually a woman in there complaining of abdominal pain. Turns out she died. She died. She died of gallstones,
Ugh.
which is fucked.
Oof.
And the reason why is because one of the head doctors there did not believe in gynecological medicine. He said, quote, "The matters of the mind had no effect on the matters of the abdomen." And it's like, are you out of your mind?
What?
Like,
What matters
someone,
in the mind? She has a fucking...
she's in pain.
Yeah.
My God. It's just people not wanting to deal with that. You know, oh, gynecological stuff. I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with. No gynecological medicine at any point was administered to these women.
Yeah.
At any
Oh,
point.
no.
At any point.
He's like, she said she was in pain, and her husband wasn't there, so I didn't even know how I was supposed to handle it. I had no one to talk to, so I just let her go.
They told her pain was imaginary. Like, straight up, told her that her pain was imaginary.
Doctors still do
is
that to
awful.
women to this day.
They do. They do. Yeah. That's not something that's gone away.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. Still happening. Of course they could go outside sometimes. The more quiet, docile ones could go outside. And they were all chained together
Oh, that's nice.
in a line. And they had these big, thick belts on, you know, that connected them. But for the visitors and stuff, they'd put these brightly colored, like, sashes
Ah.
around them to hide these belts. And make it look like they're
Well, they
just
got such
having
nice
an ordinary time.
sashes. They couldn't be having a hard time.
Well, and they're pulling a little wagon behind them. All of them are pulling this little wagon of somebody that couldn't walk or something.
And they're like,
Somebody
look at
that's
everyone's
physically,
helping them out.
physically impossible for them to walk. So that was their outside time as they would walk around the island. And honestly, the view of Manhattan from Blackwell's Island, it was just right there, and everybody could just see it. And like, it was almost a curse to just see it right there.
Yeah.
And some people busted out and tried making the swim because it doesn't look that far, but there's heavy currents. There's heavy currents in this area. Some people from the workhouse, the prison, did make it all the way across. That's because they were in shape, because they fucking forced them to work all the time. But these people that have been starved
Emaciated, yeah.
and emaciated in the asylum, they had no hope of making it across. Their bodies washed up on the fucking beach after that.
Wow.
Like they would find them dead or not at all.
Oof. Yeah, it'd be a lot worse to get dragged out to sea.
Yeah.
But probably better than dying there.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of them thought, like, I would rather go for that. That is more of an accepted fate
Yeah.
than spending a moment, even another moment here.
I kind of get that.
In a crib? I mean, think about that.
Ugh.
Would you rather be locked in a crib for days on end
Or get eaten by a shark.
or taken out to sea and your body never being found? Honestly, I'd take my chances on that river, man.
Yep.
Like,
If you can get away.
if you could, yeah. Yeah. And they're understaffed, so, you know. But it loomed to them like a
Mocked
curse.
them.
It mocked them. Suicide was a big thing there.
Pretty popular.
is very popular. They'd take their sheets, and if there was a pipe that went through your cell, a lot of women hung themselves from those pipes. Mm-hmm. They gave in to that despair, and I mean, it's rough to imagine, but it's hard to blame them for choosing that fate.
Mm-hmm. And the orderlies find them and they go, see, I told you they were crazy. They even hung themselves. They were suicidal. They were so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really. They wouldn't have done that if they weren't crazy.
Got any more palate cleansers?
Okay. Let's see. Buddy Hackett is from Roosevelt Island.
Oh.
Buddy Hackett was born there. Billie Holiday, I believe, was also born there.
They were the baby.
No, way after the time.
When that person would have been born in, like, 1850 or something.
Or even 1890s.
Okay.
Even 1890s. No, they were born there. It wasn't that bad. Actually, living on Roosevelt Island is actually quite a peaceful place now. It's one of the few quiet places in all of New York City, and it's considered part of Manhattan, which is even crazier.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it sounds nice besides all of the howling ghosts of the tortured personnel.
Now, what they did with the dead on the island is they would take them over to Hart Island. They would bury them there in mass graves. Later on, they would actually house other inmates and patients there who were drinking water from a cistern that a lot of dead body waste is sort of leaking into and poisoning the water there. They still, I think, to this day bury people from Rikers on Hart Island as well.
So it's just Corpse Island.
It is, really. And where they would bury the babies that were born on Blackwell's Island, they would bury them there.
So that's
well,
where the baby
trenchants. Pretty horrific things. Hard to talk about. There was another sort of famous, at the time, resident of Blackwell's Lunatic Asylum. Her name was Sister Mary Stanislaus Teresa. She was not insane. She may have been different or difficult in a lot of ways, but she was not insane. But her sister committed her, and she became even more... that she actually committed her to Bloomingdale, and then she was taken from Bloomingdale to Blackwell's because she thought that the Reverend there, Reverend French, could get her into contact with the bishop of the Irish mission that she was from. She was a missionary of charity. She was a sister of charity, not a missionary of charity.
Okay.
Missionary of charity is Mother Teresa. She was a sister of charity, and she always had the brown habit on. She never took it off, and a lot of people were like, why don't you just take it off? Like, everyone has said you're not welcome with us anymore. And she was like, I still view myself as a nun. It's only because they didn't want to work with her, right?
Yeah.
Not that she was forced to give up her vows or anything.
She was just too difficult to deal with.
Yeah. She became paranoid. She thought people were looking after her or following her and things like that.
Right.
Maybe they were.
And they were.
I mean,
in Blackwell's, absolutely they were. They were listening to her. They were looking after, things like that. Nelly Bly even writes about how every night, if you lived in the good section, they would... stomp through the halls, have full-blown conversations in the middle of the night.
Think of fun.
Loudly open your door, come in with the lantern, make sure you're in there and alive, and then leave. And they would do that a couple of times a night. And it was hard to sleep for all the other reasons, and also this.
Hey, is that the lantern
Sister
that we
Mary.
use for the... They're like, yes, it is the lantern that we use for the light shows.
Yeah. But yeah, Sister Mary sort of became this way, and there was a whole court case that you can read about more in Damnation Island about her trying to get out. And she eventually did get out of one of the most impossible places to leave. And she sort of set up her own little deal in this sort of tenement building where children would come up to her room and sort of play, and she would give them food and things like that.
That's nice.
It was nice. And one time a child pulled on a tablecloth, and there was a lantern on the tablecloth, and it fell, and she knocked the child out of the way, and it was a kerosene lamp, and saved the child. Child lived. But it instantly just blew up and she was engulfed in flames almost immediately, and she died in the fire.
Wow.
Yes.
That is literally the definition of like heroic sacrifice.
Yeah, and she lived through this horrificness, never let go of her faith and her vows, even when her own church was telling her to do so. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, Catholic Church, what the fuck? You're not going to saint this person? Like, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? You know?
Oh, the Catholic Church has such a spotless record beyond that.
They do. I know.
How did they feel the optics were at that exact moment?
Well, they didn't want to give
point.
it. Yeah, they didn't want to give it to anyone who was ever deemed crazy at any point, which she was. Now, despite transferring patients and prisoners elsewhere to alleviate the overcrowding problem, as many as 400 patients still slept on the floor and hallways of the stairs of Blackwell's, even after they built these other institutions and prisons.
Well, there's just so much more room to stretch out in the hallways.
So much more room for activities.
Yeah.
My God, no. And the problem didn't go away. It didn't go away until February of 1901, when the final patients were finally transferred out into newly finished buildings at Central Islip on Long Island. The end of the Blackwell Lunatic Asylum actually began.
Okay.
Where finally that was done.
We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel on this.
At least for Blackwell's Lunatic Asylum. Again, a lot of the abuses that we're talking about, the most disturbing part about this whole thing, is that none of them stopped in any of these other institutions, and many are still going to this day. Conditions might be better, relatively speaking, but again, when we were talking about people placed in power and given all this power under these sort of unsupervised, underfunded circumstances, that it also still to this day creates monsters that are otherwise good people, but they're placed with this sort of supposed authority, and they do these things, and it does. It again, we're here in 2021.
Still going on.
It still happens.
Well, luckily, some of that was mitigated by everyone knows that Ronald Reagan did his, saintly, selfless duty of trying to shut down as many of the mental hospitals as possible because, sometimes it's just so much trouble to make them run right. Just shut them all down.
Well, and that was an argument because the thing is once power of these places was transferred to New York State rather than the city, there was, things about like. It all boiled down to taxes.
Yeah.
Who pays the taxes for what? And that is where the real battle happened in who controls this versus that, and where does the tax money go? But otherwise, the people still living there saw no difference. And it really comes down to funding.
Yeah.
Funding.
It really does, yeah.
If you don't fund it, then you can't possibly take care of that many people. And honestly, this goes for pretty much anything in American history. If you look at any idea anyone's ever had to run this country, think of it in the extreme. And the extreme is New York City.
Yeah.
Like, that is your proving ground. If it doesn't work in New York City, it won't work anywhere.
It's your number one test market.
Because there's so many people there.
You can make it anywhere.
It's true. It's true. Because, it's the extreme, right? New York is the extreme.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a proving ground for a lot of these things. And a lot of people were like, hey, maybe we should just do nothing and tear all this down and do nothing. And, when Ronnie Reagan shut all of them down and basically all of these severely mentally ill people are on the streets now rather than in a place of some comfort,
Yeah.
At least they have a bed in 20th century accommodations. Again, I mean, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest exposes a lot of things as well, and from a fictionalized point of view, but it doesn't really go that far. It just displays the fact that goes all the way back to Blackwell's, which what it did was it tied criminals, like being in a penitentiary, which was also on the island, with the poor and the mentally ill.
Yep.
Because you all kept them on the same island, and it combined the two.
Yeah.
So the poor are just thieves in disguise.
Yep.
Right? And the mentally ill must be locked up.
Yeah.
And they must be treated the same way.
They're criminals waiting to happen.
Yeah, or they're going to be dangerous here in a second. Just wait long enough.
There's no way Arkham isn't influenced by this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Once you start treating the poor and mentally ill like criminals, that ideology spreads throughout time, and it still exists to this day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and don't forget that there's also Blackgate Prison.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Blackgate, yeah.
Yeah.
In Batman.
In Batman, not in real life.
To be clear.
Real life has Blackwell's Island.
Yeah. Now, the asylum on Blackwell's was taken over by the Metropolitan Hospital. By this time, the whole island was actually called Welfare Island, from basically 1900 to the 1920s.
I wish we could be going to Candy Apple Island.
Well, welfare by that time was not synonymous with. It wasn't politicized.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Welfare meant the welfare of people.
Yeah.
Not what, you welfare queen?
Yeah.
It's not that back then. So when it was called Welfare Island, it meant the well-being of citizens.
The welfare you're talking about was named after the word they called it.
Looking after people.
Yeah.
That's what welfare comes from.
And actually, it turns out it actually works, and very few people do take advantage.
Wait, I just had a crazy
evidence. Turns out,
I just had like a crazy idea. Like, wouldn't it just be like cheaper if everybody across the board like paid more in taxes, and maybe we took a little bit of money away from things like building bombs and having militarized police forces, and use that money to like make sure that the mentally ill and the poor
properly taken care of, properly housed, and even criminals, properly taken care of. Because again, the mark of any society is how you treat the least of your
How are the
inhabitants.
tiniest group of billionaires going to not just take it all if you do that?
Yeah,
that's the whole point. Like that's what fucking Reagan did. It was like if the only excuse was that so he could give tax breaks to the uber wealthy.
To the wealthy.
That's the reason he closed these things.
Yes, exactly. Saying that they just
still
these have no point.
To trickle down.
These have no point. Yeah, and no, they do have a point. And the thing is it is a learning process. But if your country that has these things has no interest in funding these projects, then they are useless and places of abject horror. You know, so yeah, you can look at it from, I guess, two different ways, but at the end of the day, these things may have been successful. We don't know because we've never tried it, but they may have been successful if they're properly funded.
The money's there.
We've never tried it. We've never done that. Might be a good idea, but hey, I'm a podcaster.
Yeah. What do you know?
Yeah.
You West Coast fucking idiot.
Yeah.
We all know that Jerry is a West Coast elite.
I know, right? Yeah, one of those elites.
Yeah.
I grew up from No, I didn't. Yeah. I did not grow up from a wealthy family.
Yeah.
It was sort of turned into a hospital, it sort of became a hospital. Some of the wings were torn down or lost to fire, and it sort of stood there. But in 1955, it was abandoned. They left. They didn't need it. And it fell into disrepair, of course. And then in the early 1970s, it was given historical landmarks status. And sort of fixed up. It was only recently cleaned up, and they renovated the place, and they actually turned the Octagon into luxury apartments.
Oh, wow.
Now, these are... And when I say luxury, I mean these are nice apartments. And anyone staying there is like, if you care about ghost stories, don't live here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would love to live there because I don't believe in ghost stories.
No.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't live there, even though I believe in ghost stories, simply because I wouldn't feel right about living in a luxury apartment where so much sadness and horror took place. I wouldn't feel right about that. I don't believe in ghosts or anything,
so
but I wouldn't feel right about that.
any luxury apartment in the United States, essentially.
Well, any city we live in, honestly, a normal apartment is on stolen ground. Yes, but
I mean, that's like there's like a
it's concentrated there.
Yeah, it's a concentrated stain of like psychic existential pain.
Yes,
and it ain't going nowhere.
No.
It's like the half-life of whatever suffering took place there has got to be in like the millions of years.
Oh my god. When we stop talking about it, honestly.
Which we shouldn't.
No. No, because you need to understand what reality is like for some people and throughout history and what that means today. And speaking of what that means today, there was a place that was opening that was same thing. This time they were going to get it right. They're going to open up a place named after a man named John Lafayette.
Oh, another one.
Riker.
Ah!
And the name of the island was Rikers Island.
No, I got that.
One of the most notorious prisons today, in operation today.
That's where you send the baddest of the bad.
Of New York City.
Yeah.
Including people as young as 13 and 14 years old.
I'm sure they'll come out totally rehabilitated for whatever juvenile offense they committed, and they won't come out hardened criminals.
Do you want to know?
Totally
do you want to know when they banned 16 and 17 year olds from being in solitary confinement? They're still there. 16 and 17 year olds are still at Rikers.
Okay.
But from solitary confinement, they were like, let's not put 16, 17 year olds in there. Do you want to know what year that was?
2014.
18.
Oh, wow.
Shit.
18.
That's like the other day.
Yeah, yeah. Not long ago. There was a case that happened. 16-year-old Khalif Browder was arrested in 2010 for stealing a backpack. And he was sentenced to, well, he wasn't sentenced. He didn't have a trial. He had no trial, and he was taken to Rikers. And for 3 years, he spent there without a trial, no trial, awaiting trial. And for 2 of those years, inconceivably, he spent in solitary confinement.
For stealing a backpack?
For 2 years, he sat in solitary confinement.
I stole
2 years.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
Why?
white.
Kidding, I've done that.
Yeah. This man
I'm
spent
not all
3
that
years.
proud of it.
3 years.
Can I ask you something? What was the color of his skin?
He was black.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
That's so fucked.
This in a place that the inmates refer to as Gladiator School.
Oh.
Gladiator School. Because people are trained to turn a blind eye to people being beaten by inmates and guards alike. Raped and beaten by guards alike. Drug out of class sometimes. Out of class where they're trying to better themselves by guards. And there's documentation of this. Where the guards beat them and straight up spray them with pepper spray 2 inches away from their eyes.
Jesus.
And beat them. I mean, this happens here. This is just a continuation of Blackwell's with better amenities, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
Horrifically, Khalif Browder his case was dismissed in 2013. It was dismissed. All that, those 3 years with no trial, was dismissed.
I mean, he stole a fucking backpack.
I just can't, like, you go through all that, and you get to your trial, and, this is dismissed. And it's like,
it's so fucked.
I sat 2 years
In solitary.
Like,
I mean,
to be dismissed. Unfortunately, he never got over his trauma from being at Rikers Island. And in 2014, in his Bronx home, he committed suicide because of his experience that he had at Rikers.
So
it makes you... and from this, they said, no more 16, 17-year-olds in solitary.
So as a child made a mistake.
Yeah.
A child.
A small mistake. He stole a
made a small
backpack.
mistake. He was tortured by the state to the point where he killed himself.
Yes. After he was out.
And this happened...
After he was out.
He couldn't handle the trauma of the torture that the state had brought on him, and solitary confinement is torture.
Yeah.
And he killed himself, and this happened just a few years ago.
Khalif Browder is also not a special case.
No.
It's not. Not a special case.
That's fucking dark.
This probably happens way more often than we know.
Yeah.
That is just not reported.
I think this is the norm, frankly.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
All 16 and 17-year-olds, it was also voted on, were to be removed from the prison by 2018. In 2019, it was also voted on to close Rikers Island by 2026. It just seems like...
Is it en route to do that? I mean...
Well, I tried looking up, are there indeed still 16, 17-year-olds at Rikers?
Probably.
I could not find any article telling me there wasn't. If you, dear listener, somehow know from someone who has survived from Rikers, or you somehow know if there are 16, 17-year-olds still in that prison, please send us an email at historyboispodcast@gmail.com. I am genuinely curious. I would like to know that. Because if that is still true, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
I mean, we don't know, but like... And if there is the case, how many of them are for non-violent, like, drug offenses?
Kid stole the backpack.
Yeah, he stole a fucking backpack.
3 years. No trial.
It's not even spooky. It's just really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should just call this sad
It's
month.
spooky the
Sad
way...
season.
It's spooky the way normal, otherwise good people are turned into monsters by this uncaring system that is underfunded.
Mm-hmm.
Our country... It's clear that our country does not care about the poor and the mentally ill.
Well, they're
And
trained to believe that they are put themselves there.
It's a moral failing.
It's a moral failing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the belief that anybody into prison is there for their own fault.
Yes. And if you're there, then you must belong there by virtue of you just being there. And I've just proved, hopefully, that there are people locked up historically. There's historical precedents for being locked up
This
and
backpack
having
thing.
nothing wrong with you.
Yep.
This backpack thing, it's like, that's so minor. Like, Jesus.
It's so minor and it's so simple. Yeah, can any one of
it's
us
not
say
the right thing to do, but God damn.
3 years, 2 of them in solitary, no trial.
As
I
a
mean, come
child.
on, is that justice?
Next week better be like Loch Ness Monster or something, man. Because this is just this is hardcore, man.
Yeah.
So there's that.
But now it's called Roosevelt Island after Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
That was a good one.
Despite all the work that Teddy Roosevelt did, it was named after
A
Franklin
different Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. And actually, it is a very nice neighborhood now, with a lot of very dark history there.
And spooky ghosts, the whole place is haunted. Even if you're Jerry and you don't believe in ghosts, you're wrong. It's haunted, and I stand by that.
It exists in your mind, which is the spookiest place of all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My Tyler Ermintrout's mind is the spookiest place of all.
Your own individual mind.
Yeah.
Well,
Your mind, not mine. Mine's fine.
That's where ghosts exist.
Yeah.
Is in your mind.
Chris's mind is it's the lunatic's ball.
Fields of cheeseburgers.
Oh, man. That sounds great.
That does sound great.
Ocean made of nachos.
I want an ocean made out of pizza pie.
Yeah. We're talking. It would rust
It's a
so
Chicago-style pizza
Oh, yeah.
pie.
Fast. Well, yeah, it's deep.
Deep douche.
Yeah.
It's very deep.
Some people would call it a casserole, and
They're not wrong.
Why can't it be both?
Yeah.
They're both delicious.
I've never really had a Chicago-style pizza.
Oh, dude, it's so
I'm
good.
extremely aware of it in
Yeah.
concept.
It's
but
pie.
Yeah.
It's like pizza pie.
It's
Yeah.
a pizza pie.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pizza pie.
It's pizza casserole.
It's got a crust that's a lot more pie-like in texture,
Yeah.
and then it's just layered with meat and cheese and sauce and everything that you'd ever want.
So I feel like if I'm in the mood for pizza, though, I'm in the mood for normal pizza.
Yeah.
But I gotta be in the mood for Chicago-style pizza.
If
It's a different mood,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
yeah,
I
It's a
feel the
different
same when
mood.
somebody gets like a white sauce pizza, and like white sauce and chicken. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I ordered
That's a
pizza.
different pizza. Yeah, that's a
it's-
different pizza.
It's like if you go, order a pizza, and they get a Hawaiian pizza, and it's like, God, I don't like
That's
Hawaiian
still a pizza, though.
Hawaiian is
No,
still
fuck that.
more pizza than a white pizza.
Yes. Because, check this out. If I say I'm going to order a pizza, what can you expect? A
Cheese,
Hawaiian
red
pizza?
sauce, crust, at least.
Yeah.
But you could expect pepperoni. You
Yeah.
could expect cheese. You could expect Hawaiian.
Yeah.
You can expect a few things. You could expect a meat lovers.
Yeah.
But if I come back with a white sauce pizza, that's not the first thing you expected.
Yeah, that's some fucking breakfast for lunch bullshit. I mean, and by the way, breakfast for lunch or dinner is totally acceptable.
It
It's just if you're not expecting it, it's a little,
I still argue.
this is not what you said.
I still argue it about Hawaiian pizza because that fucking pineapple drastically changes the flavor of it.
I'll start the controversy now.
Everybody fucking loves Hawaiian
like
pizza.
pineapple on pizza.
Everybody fucking loves it. It's
Not everybody. It's a divisive topic.
I think 90% of people fucking love it, and they're all wrong.
The
fair.
trick is, I think a lot of places do the pieces of pineapple too big. I think the pineapple should be smaller.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just chew on this huge hunks of pie. Just like
I don't know, man. It's like
little hits of sweet with that.
It's not even an inch big
Yeah.
on the biggest end.
you want
is what it
salty
should
and
be.
savory, and then somebody fucking throws some like fucking sweet shit on there, and it's a drastically different.
You know what's
Mamma mia.
the best?
I think a white pizza is closer to a pizza than a fucking pineapple pizza, and there I said it.
That's
I
fine.
disagree.
Well, the best innovation I've come across recently is hot honey on pepperoni.
Oh, that
It's
sounds great.
so good. It is so good. It's amazing. Hot honey is sweeping the nation that you can buy it at the grocery store.
Yeah, I
now.
have some.
But yeah, the Spark Pizza place in Redmond where my brother used to work at, they had a pizza that was a pepperoni and hot honey, and that's the first time I ever had it, and was like,
I give it a chance. I think I don't enjoy. I like salty and sweet, but I don't think I like savory and sweet.
Okay.
Well,
And I think
bacon with just a drizzle of
Yeah, that's
maple
not bad.
syrup on it
Yeah.
in the oven.
Yeah.
So that's sweet. That's sweet and
but
savory.
the pineapple
but
on a
candies,
pizza dominates the pizza.
Wait.
sort
I
of.
feel like we've kind of went on a bit of a
No,
tangent.
we needed
here.
to.
No, we need to wrap up.
Yeah.
We need to wrap up.
We needed to go on a tangent.
Yeah.
Much like my favorite pizza, calzone, where it's a pizza wrapped in the
It's
outside.
a personal pizza.
Yeah, it's the most personal pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a pizza sandwich.
Yeah.
It's like, here, I just took this pizza and I flipped it over and I made it into a sandwich and it's all for you.
Yep.
And it's like,
It's
you're speaking my language.
it's the
Oh,
size of a
calzone is
medium
so bad
pizza,
right now.
but I don't have to share it with anybody.
No. Because nobody wants it after you've been chewing
It
on
looks like half the size because you fold it over.
Yeah.
but it's-
That's what you tell yourself to sleep at night.
Yeah. And you will sleep poorly because you will probably have heartburn for
Oh,
the
You're
whole
going to
thing in
have
one.
massive amount of heartburn. You're going to go through a whole bottle of
And
it,
diarrhea
Thomas.
in the morning.
But it'll all be worth it.
It will all. Anyway, we are the History Boys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. That was a bummer. We had to talk about pizza for a little bit to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, my goodness.
But I am Christopher Whedon. I am a History Boy. Thank you for listening to our spooky season once again. And to go on again about our spooky movie recommendations, I'm going to do another non-actual horror movie because I don't really watch horror movies. I'm sorry. There's the ones I
fine.
like. I
But
like
it's spooky.
Midsummer and shit.
It's spooky
but I'm not
season,
going to
though.
say Midsummer. But here's what I'm going to say. It's a total classic. Everyone's probably going to put it on their list. Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
My favorite
That
Mel
is a
Brooks
classic.
movie. And the spookiest Mel Brooks movie, and that includes Dracula Dead and Loving
It's
It.
Frankenstein, first
Yes.
Yeah.
Young Frankenstein.
In that
Yeah.
case, it's Igor.
Yeah, it is. Yes. Anyway.
of all. It is my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah, me too.
I am Tyler Armentrout. I am a history boy. I am emotionally scarred from the content of today's episode, but I will persevere. Probably with a calzone or some Hawaiian pizza, much to Chris's chagrin.
You can eat all the Hawaiian pizza you want. I don't give a shit.
I'm gonna subvert everyone's expectations and recommend a movie to avoid. My wife and I watched Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage
No
last
good,
night.
huh?
It was bad. I heard it
seen
was
that.
bad. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
it's just you know what its biggest crime is for what it is. It's too long. It's boring. It's repetitive, and I just didn't
Nicolas
care.
Cage doesn't even talk in it.
Yeah.
What's the point?
If Nicolas Cage has no lines in it, he just beats up people that are animatronic, like pizza restaurant characters. It's just everything about it's just lazy, boring, and wrong. Unless you want to see Nicolas Cage chug soda pop and play pinball and beat in animatronic creatures' heads, which sounds so much cooler than it is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
It sounds way cool. I mean, you could probably find a montage on YouTube that covers all the best parts and save yourself 90 minutes. And once again, the movie's too long. Actually, let's see.
Is it more than 90 minutes?
It's an hour and 28 minutes.
Oh.
And I would say that it's probably
That is less than half And it's still too long.
Yeah, it's too long.
And I am Jerry Nash, your humble history boy as always. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, follow us on all these social medias. That's the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook. And if you want to give to our Patreon, you can for as low as $1 a month, and that will get you on our Discord, where you can talk with us and other fans of the show about all sorts of stuff we got going on there. It's a great time.
There's japes, there's antics, there's conversations. We share memes with each other. Jerry will post all kinds of pics and
It's
cool
fun.
stuff from the episodes, and it's a good time. It's a good time.
And I think my movie for this week is a Canadian film.
Oh.
Strange Brew.
No.
That's fun.
Although I
Too spooky.
I grew up on that movie. I actually really like that movie. No, The Gate, which is an underrated horror film about like this boy who has this beloved. It's like a tree fort tree in his backyard, and his dad like takes it out.
Oh,
And in the hole where the tree was, there's a gate to hell.
cool.
It's badass.
I thought you were
It's
talking
really
about
good.
Didn't they make a sequel?
They did, which is also not that bad.
Isn't it the one where the gateway's inside the mirror?
I think so. I think that's how it works.
It's in the medicine cabinet. I watched
Is
both
that-
those movies
Is
as a
that
kid.
House 2? The American House.
Maybe it's
Remember
House
that?
2. Yeah.
There's House and House 2. That could be House 2.
There's I don't know. I remember there is that in House 2 where you open it's like black void that he climbs down
Yeah, you know
in.
what? Maybe it's House 2, because also House 2 had the weird, like, dead people that were friends with the main guy. And it was
right.
very similar to the Frighteners.
Yes.
That sounds right.
Where there's, like, one's an old cowboy and, like,
Yeah.
I don't
Not
know.
to be confused with the Japanese house,
No, the one I recommended.
which is way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, The Gate. Check it out. It's dope. It's criminally underrated. I want to mention, real quick, I went down there last Wednesday, and I bought a Martin Denny record and a Lindsay Anderson film.
Oh, yes.
I went to our friend's new record store in Seattle. If you live in Seattle, the record store is called Royal Records. It's on Queen Anne and Roy. So Queen Anne has a record store again, finally, after so long without one. And it's this great spot. He has a great movie selection. He has a great record selection. They're a newer place, so it's only growing.
Yeah.
But I went down there and I grabbed a few things. I'm really excited for him. And if you live in Seattle, go check it out. Royal Records in Queen Anne.
Yeah.
Cool. And, what do we have anything for? I mean, we already did the socials, 5-star review. Any questions? HistoryBoiz podcast at gmail.com for all your questions, concerns.
That's the best way to get it into contact with us. Leaving comments and stuff. We almost never read those. Send it to the email, and we'll actually read them.
Yep.
We'll actually see them.
It is the intravenous way to get your milk into our bloodstream as quickly as possible. But that sounds like about everything for now.
That's everything.
Is it back to me?
I think it's my turn again.
All right.
Love you. Bye.
We'll see you next time. Or I guess we won't, whatever. Whatever.
Bye.